Hi, this is the August video chat, and this might be one of the worst ones so far. We'll see. I- It's been, it's a little bit better today, but it's been very hot and humid where I am lately. Like, it was like I was worried I wasn't even gonna be able to get to sleep last night because it was just so hot, lying there still with fans blowing on me, and I'm still just sweating profusely and can't, even though I'm tired, I can't go to sleep. So that's kind of the context. I'm for sure gonna look worse by the end of this chat. Oh yeah, speaking of which, the whatever's wrong with me with my skin is flaring up too. So that's why it looks like I'm doing like Joker role playing or something like that. It kind of looks like I have a birthmark on my face. So this would be a good one to listen to if you want to do something else rather than look at me. I figure if this gets bad enough, I'll just start doing these with like a hood over myself, so you just sort of see like my mouth and that's it. Um, it's better than it was. It was a lot worse, like half an hour to an hour ago. Uh, I guess the upside is my voice is unlikely to give out because I've been doing a bunch of recording lately. So that's the upside. But and I'm leaving the door much more open. That might lead to more of an echo, but hopefully not too much. Just because I'm going to be getting lightheaded within half an hour then if I don't do that this time. Like it's not as hot as Louisiana, my time living there, but like it's definitely approaching tropical where I am right now. Oh, someone's saying I've forever changed their dialect since late 2000s. Yeah, that's probably not. That's probably for the worse actually with me, but it is what it is. Let's see. Oh yeah, and just to get this out of the way, because somebody always says this, well, why don't you use air conditioning? It's because Polish windows, they are just not designed to hold an air conditioner. So I would have to like renovate the apartment, and I'm renting the apartment. That's not really my call. So uh, it's just fans. And the thing is, I grew up not having air conditioning. So you'd think I'd be used to it, but no, I'm not. My heat tolerance is still poor. Uh, okay, so yeah, with that, uh, not too many announcements, although one of them leads right into the first question. Next game dungeon running behind on, but it's coming along. I'm, I think what I said on Twitter was it's coming out this month. I can pretty firmly stand by that. So it's gonna be a few more days still. This is another one that escalated. I thought this is one that this won't be too long. No, things kept happening, like that I wasn't anticipating. So, but it's one of these that made itself a more suspenseful episode for me. Uh, what else? The oh yeah, this yeah, and then the brief. Uh, yeah, and then the brief, what I call the abuse of power section, where I just ask for help with things. One of my like little side projects is I'm collecting all this art I like, and I'm gonna convert them into wallpapers. But since I'm on an ultra wide now, I want to see about like maybe using AI to expand the edges of it. Now, Photoshop has a feature like this, which is called like content aware filling, but it only uses what's existing from the original picture, and it has mixed results. I also tried the Affinity graphic editor, and its results weren't as good, in my opinion. And I also tried a program called inpainting. Yeah, I think the technical term for this is outpainting. Inpainting is like a common thing with like, say you want to like remove elements of a photo, and outpainting is I'm basically trying to expand the edges. But I'm thinking, what's the best what's the best AI solution for that sort of thing right now? Because I tried researching and all I found were just sort of white papers on it. Like I didn't find any actual code or programs I could run for it. So it could be Photoshop's still the best game in town, which would be unfortunate. But I just wanted to see if anybody had suggestions or tips on that. So it's like, let's say you want to take like a 4:3 or 16:9 image and you want to expand it to like 21:9, but then it's using AI to take its best guess on those edges. So Uh, so yeah, my email is rosswscott@gmail.com. So yeah, feel free to, especially good if it's something that could be done like batch sections, that sort of thing. But batch processing. But yeah, if anybody has ideas on that, I'd be interested in. And I was going to announce on this, one of these questions got me to think harder about this. It's the first one. So I'll just get in that. This deals with future plans. The first question was, they want to know how the movie's going. Unfortunately, the movie's been a bit stalled because I've been working on other things, but that got me thinking, like, well, what in the hell am I going to finally buckle down and do this? So I came to a conclusion that I was satisfied with, because time has proven I am not good with time estimates or trying to meet them. Or like when I meet them, it's like I'm working every single waking hour, which is not fun. However, I am relatively good about meeting goals I set out about to meet. So I figure I should. So I figured part of the frustrating thing is it feels like I'm perpetually trying to catch up with where I wanted to be earlier. And I figure. So I decided, okay, well, what are like the videos I really want to get out before I like take more of a plunge on the movie, and basically get to where I wanted to be a year ago, essentially. So I kind of made a list, and it came out to a minimum of 8 and a maximum of 10, I think. So whatever the next 8 to 10 videos are, not counting the video chats or like a dead game news type thing out of nowhere, just like planned ones like Freeman's Mind, Game Dungeon, these side videos I'm wanting to do. I'm just going to do the next 8 to 10 videos like that. This includes Halloween and Christmas this year, which I don't even know what I'm going to do for either of those yet. And then I'm going to take a couple months and just spend on nothing except the movie. Try to like, because what's been holding up the movie is just getting the workflow down on the technical end of things. Modeling and the animation system in particular, that's just holding everything up for me. And like, it's like I'll spend time researching, and then it's like, oh, it's this dead end, I can't do this. And then, so yeah, the next game dungeon that's coming, that's going to be number 1 on the list. So you'll be able to count off, and I'll be keeping track too. Let's see, there's a dozen YouTubers that each do one video in 3 months. There's really no need to you to stress that. Well, see, I don't want it to be like that. It's like I want to have more videos for you guys. You know, it's, I mean, however, I have no qualms not giving you videos for a long time if then the movie gets made, because I feel like the movie will like redeem myself on a lot, because that'll be like, oh, okay, so he was doing this. Oh, okay, that's all right then. You know, I feel like it'll make up for that. So, let's see, what else? Okay, yeah, so that's my plan with the movie. It's been a bit stalled lately, but I'm just going to focus on catching up to where I wanted to be a while back. Unfortunately, this probably won't include the follow-up for the GUI, but it could. Oh yeah, I guess that's another minor request. If people have, I kind of want to like finish my redesign before as much as I can on Windows before I do the follow-up. If people have suggestions for like icons and icon sites that are not flat shaded, which seems to be like 95% of what's out there right now, let me know. You know, stuff that like, honestly, like sort of the mid 2000s, I think were sort of like the high point for me with icons and with some Windows interfaces too. But yeah, so that's the plan. So instead, it's just going to be more of like a countdown system, which that works much better for me, because then if I find, oh, the video really needs an extra week to finish it off, it's like, okay, fine. People know it's coming. They know this is like a countdown to a lot more getting done in the movie. And even then, I won't necessarily wait until the movie's done before resuming videos after that. But what I want to do is get to a point where, like, I have my workflow figured out. And, like, so I know exactly how I'm going to go about, like, animating the scenes, like, implementing the model systems, you know. So it won't be completely done. And then once I get to that, I'll probably, like, slowly start resuming Game Dungeon again after that. So, yeah, and if okay, somebody saying that the profit for GUI stuff. Well, I think you'll like what I have. Yeah, the GUI follow up, that's a maybe. That one may or may not get done before I just go all in on the movie, but yeah. Okay, so I should keep moving on. Yeah, there were a bunch of questions this time. I'm definitely gonna have to skip a lot of them towards the end, but I'll get through what I can. I think leaving the door half open is helping a lot more this time for me not getting lightheaded, but I'm still kind of early in on it. Oh yeah, next one was, what would you say is more important in a video game? The lore, subtle world building in the background, or the story, the main plot? I want to say neither. A compelling reason to be interested in the game is the most important part. Like stuff because and if it's a story-based game, then your main plot. If it's not, if story is just kind of complimentary, then not even that. Like, because a lot of games, no, it's the gameplay that's drawing you in. I really think the lore is just like the icing on the cake. I would rather have a game that has huge plot holes. Some things were underdeveloped, but it's a blast to play. Or, or the main plot that they did develop was, whoa, I got blurry there. Or the main plot that they did develop is great. Than something that has like tons of lore and details everywhere, but I just don't care about it. Like nothing in it really sucked me in. I was kind of getting on that in the Mage Knight Apocalypse video. It's just like, I had all these questions, but that wasn't my real issue. Like, yeah, I was kind of, it's more like I wanted to care about what was going on in the story, and they hadn't, or the characters or something, they hadn't really built it up that way. So that would, yeah, just have something about your game that really makes people want to play it. And then this other stuff is complementary to that. Although, if some games are way more story focused, like Phantasmagoria, that's one where, like, if the story wasn't good on that, then that would have really fell apart, in my opinion. So, yeah, the lore, that's the icing on the cake. So, and in fact, I'll say this right now, in terms of like the subtle details and world building in the background, I'll take a decent stab at it, but it's possible I could have shortcomings in that in the movie, because that's not going to be the main focus. The main focus is going to be an engaging reason to watch the movie, like be interested in the characters and the plot, that sort of thing, the conflict. So, yeah, the other stuff is complementary, in my opinion. But yeah, on the other hand, if it's a gameplay, I'd say Supreme, like I was thinking of a game off the top of my head, like Supreme Commander is really great gameplay. The story is okay. It's not that great. That's okay. It's still one of my favorite strategy games because the gameplay and atmosphere is very good. So that's all they really needed to make a great game. But it just depends on what you're aiming for. Yeah, this one, I didn't really have a great answer for this. They're saying, what's the worst experience you've had at a grocery store? And I mean, if I had to pick, it would probably be doing security guard work. So yeah, I mean, you can simulate it. Just go into a grocery store and stand in one place for about 8 hours. You can take a half-hour break for lunch, and like you can take 1 or 2 like 15-minute breaks. But that's about it, and just stand there. And I guess every hour you can walk around the store and just write down that you walked around the store. I mean, It's like I think I mentioned before, when I was doing security guard work, it would just happen. Like, not a single day would go by where I just didn't think about my own mortality. So that, and although the question got me thinking of another side video that I'd love to make, but this one will probably have to be, this one will be short, and this one could probably handle like a 2D animated thing, where I had an idea for a grocery store visit that would be one of the worst, but I think would be quite entertaining. Well, this is why I said 8 to 10. Maybe I'll sneak in one or two of these ideas and the one or two extra. But I really, so that's my problem, is like I have to like force myself to cut off some of my ambition. Like, and in this case, that doesn't mean like making the video better, but it means like how much I'm gonna make before I just do the movie, because in the past it's been partially a financial thing. That now it's still partially financial, but it's more just like I got to stop going for the lower hanging fruit of something I can make in like a month or two versus something that's going to take a lot longer, but it'll be much better, you know. But yeah, and then somebody had a long answer underneath on the Reddit about trying to like pseudo shoplift candy bars. It sounds like that sounds more like some one of my friends would do for like trying to play it off. Let's see. Oh yeah, what are your thoughts on the present remake remaster era of gaming we are going through? Do you think older popular games should have remakes, remasters? Should we let sleeping dogs lie and create new experiences? Well, I mean, I'm guessing most of the studios doing this aren't. Yeah, I mean, hopefully they're not devoting too much time to it. It's kind of a mix and depends like what the remake is doing. Like if it's well, they mention, or some of the comments beneath that mentioned like System Shock. That's that's probably the remake I'm most looking forward to, because that's a game where not only were the graphics like pretty dated and that it really could stand to benefit from a modern remake, but like the controls were pretty wonky for the time. So that's something that's like a ripe candidate for a remake where it could really benefit from like some modern implementation of it. So yeah, I'm all for remakes like that. Well, I wouldn't mind I would say more of a reimagining of Realms of the Haunting or something, because that one was kind of awkward, but it had interesting ideas. Actually, that one's yeah. Or hey, maybe they could have like a pretty faithful remake and then have a company with a sequel. That'll probably be the best way to handle it. So yeah, I think like the older and rougher the game is, or just this can either be with graphics or gameplay or controls, then the more I'm on board with a remake, because then it's like, oh, okay, maybe this can cut out all the crap that was in the original. For games that I feel like don't really need a remake, I guess I don't really care that much if they just want to re-release it and then all they're doing is like a little bit higher quality textures and lighting. Then okay, whatever. I mean, I probably won't be that interested in it if I played the original. But I mean, maybe it could be marginally better. I mean, sometimes they'll add like little things that can make a big difference. Like maybe the original didn't support widescreen and the remake does, or the original had the frame rate capped at 30 and the new one can go up to 60 or higher. That can be a nice feature. Let's see. Or I guess if it's like a 2D game, they redo some of the graphics. But yeah, I mean, it depends. If it's the sort of thing where I'm looking for an excuse to replay it, or I haven't played the original, then I might be more interested. But if I've already played it, then and I feel like I got my share of it, then yeah, like that was one that felt kind of like unnecessary to me. Like I've heard they're remaking Resident Evil 4. It's like, well, I mean, like the very original especially on the PC, it was pretty rough around the edges. But I think it had some re-releases or like some mods that ironed it all out. So it's like, the graphics are pretty good on the original. It's like, does that really need that one really need a remake? Whereas remaking two, or three too, I guess. Yeah, that makes much more sense because those graphics were much more dated. You had tank controls. So it's like there's a lot of room to maneuver there. Before, I felt like I'd rather just see a new game, you know? I still haven't played the remake of 2. Yeah, in fact, I may have to catch up on more Resident Evil since my wife has a recent obsession now with Leon Kennedy. So at least that's something I know about. Like her obsession with Sephiroth, I don't know much at all about, but I remember Leon. So though I only know Leon from 2 and 4. I haven't played 6, and I think there's some like videos, some Resident Evil videos I haven't seen. So I don't know. I've heard 6 wasn't that good though. But yeah, but I mean, I don't really. Yeah, like I guess another example would be something like Skyrim, where they've remade it, like or re-released it with just really minor differences multiple times now. It's like, well, I don't really care. I mean, but yeah, I guess what I don't like is when the remake is like, there are ways that it's like a side grade and you're not sure if you like it better or not. Or sometimes it's just flat out worse than the original because it just has more bugs. Or like that one I'm always pointing to for Fable, a game that's designed to be kind of bright and colorful, like a fairy tale. They put in like this yellowish brown filter all over everything. It's like, why? Why did they do that? So it's like, I would rather play the original than play that. So yeah, I guess all I would say is if they're gonna do a remake, really try hard not to make it worse. You know what I think would be, what I think would get less ire from everyone involved would just be making a very good port. I think like I think I mentioned it before. What was it Dead something? The one where you're at, how am I forgetting this? Dead Rising. Yeah, Dead Rising. I played the original once it got ported like many years later, and it really just felt like a port, except you can boost the resolution, could have widescreen, the frame rate was higher. So it's like, that's fine. So it was just a nice, clean port with like a few modern features you'd expect from modern games that hopefully aren't too hard to implement. I feel like that would be an everybody wins solution because that should hopefully take a minimum of effort of the company, which if they just want to make a quick buck. But for newcomers who never had the original, or they just didn't know about it, like, okay, here it is in a nice neat package, so and then you're not gonna, that shouldn't tread on the purists who don't want anything to change because not much did. So yeah, I'm all for like high quality ports, and and that seems like that would take a lot less effort than a full on remake, where you have to like replace the models and textures and make the lighting, everything behaves with the lighting system and that sort of thing. So yeah. I think that's the closest to everybody wins because it won't be as impressive as like a full-on remake, but that's a hell of a lot less work, and it's a quick buck without having to upset the original fans, But yeah, I mean, that's the way I see it. It's like you can always just not buy it, as long as the original works. So. Yeah, but I don't like playing the research game of figuring out, okay, well, which one's better, like the original, like, or sometimes they have multiple remakes. Like I think I still haven't played it. I think the game Outcast. I think there's like an Outcast. There's like an Outcast 1.5. There's an Outcast Reloaded or some name like that. and like one of them is better than the other. I think it might be like the 1.5 version, but a lot of these can be side grades too, where it's like I think one of them was Kingdoms of Amalur was like that. They had a re-release, and it was like when you look at the comparison videos, it's like, well, geez, this. Yeah, I think Sleeping Dogs is another one like that. Or it's like, or it's in some areas this one looks better, in other areas this one looks better, and it's like you can't decide. Or usually what ends up happening is the original looks better and more cohesive overall, and then the remake looks better in some parts. So yeah, I hate having to play the research game for remakes. So yeah. Yeah, somebody's saying Myst is like 100 remakes. Well, I'd say Myst, at least one or two of those is warranted, like with real Myst, because then they took that from like the 2D original and then tried to convert it to 3D. So yeah, that's like a kind of a transformative change. So yeah, I'm all for something like that. Like, but yeah, it just depends. It's I guess remakes don't bother me too much because if it's just a complete wreck, you can just play the original. So let's see. Okay. Oh yeah, they're asking if I've played the Omicron: The Nomad Soul. I played a couple hours of it, and then I think I got stuck, and then I think I got sidetracked. And from the comments, from the question, there, it sounds like that's when you basically had to have a walkthrough from it. So yeah, I was interested in it. I might go back to it eventually. But yeah, any game that you have to have a walkthrough for, that's a deterrent for me from getting too far into it. I have to like kind of takes more mental energy for me to want to like buckle down and go through it. Because then you're having to switch back and forth, and then you have to decide, well, can I figure this out, or should I just not even try? And it's not as much fun to play the game like that if you have to constantly be flipping back through notes and finding out, like, okay, what do I do now? But yeah, it was intriguing. So yeah, that's one of those. I'll either play through it or watch a playthrough of it eventually. I have like a list of games I mean to watch a play. Well, I watched through a playthrough of a couple of ones I was curious about this month, but yeah, it just kind of depends what the game has as to whether it's like worth playing at all or just pure playthrough. Like if I just, it's like the gameplay looked intriguing. Like I did like the kind of exploration aspect of it, but yeah, I'm not a fan of you have to have a walkthrough gameplay. But yeah, I'll get to it. That one intrigues me. That one intrigues me. Yeah, kind of like Messiah did too. That was one that like I had to know what was on the other side of that. So well, Omicron definitely falls into that category for me. Yeah, okay. This one I might cop out a bit. They're saying, "What's your opinion on secularism and religion?" I feel like this is one of those topics. Yeah, okay. This might be a bit of wisdom I found. There's some topics where I don't have a particularly, I might have an opinion, but not a particularly strong one. Whereas a lot of people involved have very strong opinions on them. And then as soon as you open your mouth on it, it's like you get bombarded from commentary on one side, and then like they've lost. Yeah, it's like they never want to talk to you again. And or they get into arguments, and I might give like a basic argument, but then they'll come back because they're like 10 times more versed in this. And I'm thinking, well, and then I'm thinking like, wait, what's even happening here? This isn't even something I meant to even, it's like you get kind of dragged into this kind of framework of something you didn't even want to like spend a whole lot of time on anyway. And and then you realize, well, wait, what am I even doing? And I feel like this is one of those topics like that. I mean, I'm all fine with addressing it within like the context of a game, though, which I've done multiple times now, like with like Hellgate London or Messiah. So if it's like, okay, God sent down a cherub to reform to see if humanity can be saved or stop saved. Okay, fine, let's do it. So if it's working within that, but or yeah, in the it's like I said in the Cult Tycoon episode. Like, yeah, I can't tell you which cult you should join. That's a very personal decision. So I feel like this is one of those topics. I don't have anything particularly insightful to say on it, so you're not missing anything really. This strikes me as a topic I should probably just not go down that, but that will not stop me from playing games I'm interested in that have a religious theme bent to them. Although the religious bent is it's very often, okay, demons, it's literally the apocalypse and demons are coming out of the earth, so we gotta stop. That's usually the context. So, well, it wasn't for Messiah, though. I would love a successor to Messiah, though. That would be... Well, Messiah had so much potential. I feel like a sequel would be better, or a spiritual successor would be better for Messiah. Because, I mean, just a straight remake, yeah, you could improve it a lot, but I feel like there's so much potential. They should just go on to the next thing and just sort of start over, Because that was the big... I mean, for sure they could do the Cyber City way better now and could improve the gameplay a lot. But what I was really missing from Messiah was the psychological element of just seeing like people who you've known your entire life, or just you always know what to expect of them, just acting very strangely, and everybody's not sure how to react to this, So I was missing the psychological chaos from Messiah. So that's what I would want to see in a successor to it. Yeah, or actually, I was thinking with religious themed games, Blasphemous. That one was a really good one. So yeah, I'm not against that in games, but I don't really want to dive deeper to it on like a more serious level. Because again, that's not a topic I have strong opinions on. So, or if it does rise to that level, there's many objective things you can point to. Like I was thinking, for example, like, okay, I'm anti-holy war, or if it's a holy war, like all of recorded history doesn't rise to the standard that I would be behind it. So again, if demons are coming out, like literal demons with horns and jagged teeth are coming out of the earth, then all right, then I'm on board for the holy war. But anything less, it's probably not warranted. But like what I say is going to have any influence on that if one's going on. So, But again, you can point to objective things. Then that's not. It's less about the religion, more about what people are actively doing. What are your thoughts looking back on the first Freeman's Mind now it's been some years? I try not to think about it. And what did you learn from that experience that you'll apply to Freeman's Mind too? I'm not sure. I try to leave myself a little more time in the gaps when I'm saying the sentences, so it's not too quickly forced. There was more of that in the early episodes. I'm not sure I've even improved on it. I mean, the recording quality's better, but... And they're asking why Half-Life Source. I wanted the ragdolls. So somebody was saying that was because of the motion blur effect. Well, it's easier, or it was easier at the time with the Source engine then. But if you recall, when I did the Half-Life Uplink, I had the motion blur on that too. So it was possible. It was just more of a pain. But yeah, I wanted the ragdolls. And I did have more familiarity with it at the time when I started with Civil Protection. So... And somebody's saying they're dying to see a Legacy of Kain game dungeon. Yeah, but that's... I'd rather have the movie. I'm not saying never, but I'd rather have the movie more. And the thing is, if I cover Blood Omen, it's like I've got to go through the others, So who knows how long that would be? Because a big strength of that game is the story. So... I want to say maybe even more so in the sequels. I feel like the gameplay on all of them is just kind of okay. The world, it kind of varies. Like I feel like the world, actually, Blood Omen 1 and 2 might be my favorite for the world, but for what it's worth, one of the Legacy of Kain games, I think will probably get a future cameo in one of the videos, because it was a Blood Omen 2 is when I was trying to get working in VR, and the well, you'll see. It's but let's see. Just hearing you talk more about it. Well, I mean, I think Kane's a fantastic character. I mean, the way, like, I love his tenacity. You know, just he's a very determined person, and he tries to make a lot of rational decisions, and like he's arrogant, but he sort of owns it, you know, because he's nobility, and yeah, like I remember one of the lines. It's like saying, "Be gone." The stench of the fields hangs about you like a pall. Like, you know, it's he has the class to back up his arrogance. I like that about Kain. Uh, there's a lot to like about that. Yeah, it's hardly a perfect game on any front, but like the characters, especially Kain, are done so well, and the story gets way more interesting the deeper you go into it. So, yeah, that the whole series is just kind of like it's like a really awkward good hit, you know, because I was thinking like the music in the original, it's like pretty good, and then but there's no track I think is just great, whereas in Soul Reaver, like that opening track, I think they took it from another album. That track is awesome. Like the one that they're showing an intro clip where he throws Raziel into the abyss there. Like, yeah, Mid Oshram, I forget what the name of it is. But and like later, it's like they never had a theme as good as that again, I feel like, in the series. Though Soul Reaver 2 and Blood Omen 2, I feel like I had some decent tracks in there. Yeah, in fact, some of the music from Soul Reaver 2, yeah, I used some of it in Civil Protection, but I also, there's one track in there that's going to be my inspiration for like one of the scenes in the movie. So, but yeah, I remember in Defiance, they're trying to have, there's like this standoff between Kain and Raziel, and for Raziel, they bring back that original theme from Soul Reaver, which was great for the standoff. And for Kain, they didn't really have anything that great for him with the music. So it's like the story is like is kind of awkward. The gameplay has always been like a little awkward. The environments, it's like maybe they don't quite hit their full potential, but altogether, it's a really neat experience. So it's it's a mix. Kane's a bit, is saying Kane's whiny and Blood Omen too. Yeah, but he has that. I guess what I like about, I don't remember him being that whiny, but maybe. I guess what I like about Kain is just like he's someone, when he has a goal he's trying to achieve, he's like a guided missile. Like he is just, you're not gonna stop him. And that's what I love about Kain. It's like if he's determined something, he is going to do literally everything to achieve his goal. So I love that about Kain's character. Like nothing is off the table for him achieving his goal. So that's the part I really like about it. Okay. A new game called Cult of the Lamb has been released recently. Do you intend on giving it a try since there's a demo available? Yeah, and somebody tried to answer it for me, and it sounds like they were pretty close. Yeah, maybe eventually, but I just have so many games already that I'm spoiled for choice. I guess, unfortunately for developers, that kind of sucks away some of the interest in me trying like, oh, a brand new game, I should try the demo. Whereas in the old days, there was a lot less games to go around or to acquire. So I tried demos all the time and with shareware. But now it's like, well, by the time I get around to your game, it might be like $5 or less anyway. So it's like I'll just go through the stuff that like I'm still very interested in, but came out 10 years ago or even earlier. I'm kind of a bottom feeder when it comes to like my gaming habits. Like I really it's so much more economical, and you get a more polished experience if you don't have a problem playing older games. So, but yeah, but again, some games like can really intrigue me, even if they're newer ones. But I don't know. I feel like that one's just gonna have to get queued up with the others. So. Yeah, some in the comments, somebody's saying unbelievable quality indie games are at the highest concentration I've ever seen in my life. Yeah, really, it's just it's just overwhelmingly. Yeah, somebody else is saying you were on the list and I'll get to you when I get to you. Yeah, unfortunately, it is like that. So I'm sorry. It's just you're competing against the ghost of gaming history. So. Yeah, this next one's a great question, but I didn't have a great answer. They're saying, what's the funniest, most stupid thing you've ever seen another player do in a multiplayer game? Man, there are probably many moments, but they just kind of passed and I didn't think about, and they just sort of blurred together. You know, that's actually one of the reasons, like, I started playing multiplayer games less, is that I realized when I like look back on them, it's just kind of like this continual blur where like, yeah, I remember some highlights, but then like my brain didn't really retain it. Whereas if I had played like, let's say 10 single player games in that same time, it's like my memory might fade, but it'll be more distinctive, like what I remember about it. It's like a wider variety of experiences. So, yeah, I was just kind of, I was thinking of like, well, I remember in Unreal Tournament 2004, so occasionally I would just see people just crater right in front of me. That always got that I didn't even spot. You know, I'm just running along, bam, and bam, I just crater. It's kind of like the beginning of Morrowind, you know, with the guy falling out of nowhere. Those are always fun moments. Yeah, I guess I think I mentioned this one before. There was a fun one in Warcraft 3 where we were doing a big team game, and this guy managed to, his offense wasn't so good, but he was a master builder. He was playing Night Elf, and he had all these buildings that just snaked us all the way around to get into his base. So it was just congested as could be trying to attack him. I mean, we were coming in strong, but he was really slowing us down. Not really killing us, just slowing us. And then once we got in farther, then his hero cast Starfall, which if you haven't played the game, that's one of the best spells in the game. It just gradually starts killing all your units in just a huge radius. And I realized, oh God, because if they did that, that could have totally turned the tide of the entire game, because we were bunched. It was like perfect for him. However, I was just in range and I was using the Dreadlord, so I put him to sleep. And that saved the game for us. And then when I did that, somebody on our team started typing like, like in capital letters. He's like, go to sleep, little girls. Like this obviously just made my teammates' day that I was able to cast sleep at that time. And I remember just his reaction cracked me up to that. I'm trying to think of like other really, if you haven't seen it on my channel, look up Diary of a Zombie. That was probably the most successful spree I ever had in that game. And I thought it was just hilarious. So I just added a bunch of voices to what was going on. And that was just the raw demo playing back that you see there. Just from from when I spawned to when I died, just uncut. Just all I did was add voices and some sound effects. So, yeah, take a look at that if you haven't seen it. Diary of a Zombie. It's not long, but like it was mostly just it was a combination of luck and the opposing team not being the best. It's like I just went on this rampage past people and went to the kitchen. And it's like the people guarding. It's like they just forgot about me. It's like what you know. Yeah, so that was the best spree I ever had in there. But by coincidence, it was also hilarious. So yeah, in Zombie Panic, I remember like sometimes you would see a massive number of teammates. Like at one point, you have to set the bomb to blow out this wall, and the game warns you, like, "Hey, take cover." Sometimes I think I saw maybe as many as 8 people killed at once from that bomb that you're just supposed to get out of the way while the timer's going down. Nope, boom, just instant death. Trying to think of some other really funny moments. Like sometimes the conversations could be pretty funny. I'm trying to. Yeah, mine are kind of lame, probably compared to what you could find online. Or else I would have to. I actually have a ton of old Unreal Tournament 2004 and Zombie Panic Source demos that I want to eventually. One of my projects is to like eventually go through and like convert them to video, and then maybe well, my original plan was like at the time I had like a cycle machine, so I'd sometimes sit and watch those while I'm exercising. But now I just kind of go outdoors. But I was thinking now I don't really have time to like watch through all of them. But I don't know. Maybe I could. I still want to do that at some point. Just kind of convert the demos to video and then put them somewhere, and then eventually find some highlights out of all of them. That's probably the closest I'll get to like watching sports. But even then, I was there. It was me in most of the demos, so it was adds to some of the appeal to it. But yeah, I'm afraid I don't have a lot of good answers. My brain just discarded a lot of it. I'd have to. It's in there somewhere, but I forgot a lot. Okay, they're saying the game Overwatch is effectively being overwritten by Overwatch 2, altering the game to a completely different format. It would be impossible to play Overwatch 1 as it exists now and after transforms on that. Will Overwatch 1 be dead come October? Perhaps this is just a partial killing. Your thoughts? Well, this is one of those where I, of course, prefer people to play any version they want, you know, especially if they're transitioning from 1 to 2. I don't know much about Overwatch, so I can't really comment on it specifically, but I see this as more of a gray area because it depends on the game. Because some games you lose a lot by playing the newer version, where some past versions are just you can point to a lot of objective changes where they really were better and more fun. Whereas others, it's like, yeah, some things are better or worse, but like if you look at the net result over time, the newer version's a lot better. But I can respect people wanting to see the old one too. However, to me, I of course prefer people to be able to do the older version if they want to, especially on like a private server or something. But there are some reasons for a developer to kind of want to move everyone over, and they're not robbing you of the entire game. But again, it can vary though. Like sometimes the changes are so drastic that you just don't like the new version. I'm not really picking up the mantle on that one as much because it's so much of a gray area and nebulous, especially from a legal standpoint, that it's like, well, you still can play a version of Overwatch if you bought it, or is Overwatch? I don't even remember if Overwatch is free to play or not. That's how much I know about Overwatch. It's whereas I like to focus on just the black and white stuff, that there is no excuse for this, where you paid money and they shut down the game and you want to keep playing and others want to keep playing and they're not giving you any way to do so. Like they're not giving you a patch client, a way to host a private server, whereas this was 100% common practice a couple decades ago. And you can still play those games from a couple decades ago online with other people. So there's just no excuse. And I think it runs afoul of laws that just needs to be examined. And that is something I am doing this year. I mentioned that on the previous video chats. I'm going to make a hard press, as much of a press as I can in France with I forget how to pronounce it, Qui Quasia, or I'm probably butchering that. What I mentioned in the Dead Game News Valve versus France video, like I'm doing that, I'm pushing that as far as I possibly can this year. If it turns out me making a video and that will help, I will do it, and that will not count towards the 10 total. Because I'm just not, I'm not going to forgive myself if I don't like do as much as I can, and I figure that's my best shot. And I'm embarrassed I've taken as long on that as I have, so I figure that's the best bet. And if I can get France to rule that yes, if you paid for a game and they rendered it inoperable, that like this should not be legal, then that'll be an enormous victory. So, and yes, what the person wrote in the chat is the institution I'm talking about. Because they made almost the exact same argument I was making in that different court case about reselling digital games, which I don't even think that's necessarily a wise move to to try and force rights on that particular area because it's kind of a different medium. But whatever, I'll piggyback on that legal argument all the way if it means I can save games. So yeah, that's something I am doing regardless. So, okay. Do you still have the pictures when Richard Dean Anderson was with you at the fan meeting? Yes, but that's not Richard Dean Anderson. I posted that as a joke because he looks similar to him. I mean, I posted a decent resolution, so I thought people would figure it out, but most didn't. So, yeah, that was one of the fans who came to that meetup. That was his dad that came along, and it's like he did have kind of a resemblance to him. So that's why I put that up there. But let's see. Are you planning to revisit Well of Souls? Yeah, that'll be in the follow-up. There's a rumor going around that one that I need to address. So it kind of similar to what I did for the Test Drive 3 claim, where people had a claim on it that I wasn't doing something right. So we'll get Mythbusters on it. You know. Yeah, that should be in the next follow-up. The follow-up, I think, is going to be part of that 10 there. So. Oh yeah, they're asking when I did tech support, what was the most difficult caller I had to work with? And they said the one that they had was like working for 20 minutes trying to authenticate Windows while they were drunk or something. No, that wouldn't be. That would be a break for me because it's like, oh, good, I finally don't have to like go at the same pace. Like this guy's drunk. We'll just take as long as we need to. The worst one I ever got was this lady who, like, right off the bat, she was coming across like the most obnoxious person possible, and yeah, okay, she was coming off really obnoxious, really vindicative. It's like she was angry at me personally for the problem with the internet, and she was extremely impatient. So that's not a good. You don't want that. I mean, I was trying to like situate her, but just her whole entire tone was just so caustic that I was just thinking like, geez. And this is like, I took hundreds, maybe thousands of calls. This one lady just stood out of all of that. That it's just like a harpy, basically, like a more competent harpy. Like, just like I can believe she had some authoritative job in business or something because it was, but she didn't have the patience for this, and we had to go through the steps to find out what the problem. That's a problem if you're troubleshooting and you're, especially over the phone. It's like everything just takes longer. You have to take time to figure it out. But I got lucky in that in going through the steps, she ended up unplugging the phone line that she was calling from, so that disconnected the call. And when that happens, it's optional as to whether you want to call back to resume it. I did not call back. I was like so happy to get off of that call with her because there was no way this was going to go in a positive way for either of us. Like, it was just impossible. So I got her to basically disconnect herself. I didn't even do it on purpose. I'd like to say I thought of that, but I didn't. It was just coincidence. But I wasn't going to look a gift horse in the mouth. So I basically got to hand her off to some other poor person. No, I mean, no, if somebody was drunk no, that's fine. I get a break then. It's like, oh, no, let's do it again. You missed. Like, I had one guy who was calling, who was high and said as much. And he was trying to log in, and he couldn't log in, and apparently he forgot his password. And I think this was before, maybe not before, but at least this company didn't do it. Like, apparently we had their passwords on file. That's not really a good practice. You should, I think nowadays you just reset them, But we had it on file, and so I had to kind of walk them through like the security question for to authenticate him, to give him the password. And we went through that. That was a struggle for him, but and then like his password ended up being weed. And then when I told him that, he just laughed so hard, at it. So he was like, "Oh my God, my password is weed." And it's like, that was just like the funniest thing. I can't even remember that. That was just like the funniest thing on earth for him. Like him saying he was working with a drunk cut. I don't know if I worked with any. I may have had one or two that were drunk, but none that were just. I don't think I got any that were completely plastered. But I got the guy who was just really stoned, or sometimes I would get like kind of grandmas that just had to go through everything really slowly. It's like, oh wait, I have to check. Let me go check for that in the next room. I would just say go ahead, because that was a break for me, and that hurts your metrics. But it's like you're given I mean, I imagine it's still like this. You're given diametrically composed metrics in tech support, where you're supposed to get off the call as soon as possible, but you're also supposed to solve the problem. And you're supposed to be friendly to the people. So it's like you really have to pick which one you want. And I would just pick just solving the problem. So if I got some grandma that wrecked my average call time, like, I just didn't care, because it's like, whatever, I get a break. So I can space out or maybe play a little mini game while she's trying to while she's trying to figure out how to boot up her computer or something. Fine. That's... So those calls never bug me. I'm trying to think of any of those that were like really bad. And it usually wasn't too bad. Like just helping people on the phone, that wasn't such a issue for me. It was the just being monitored to the second on every single thing you do. That's the part that got to me. So if I could just answer the calls and fix them casually, that would have made the job like half as bad. Okay, if you had to make a time capsule to 100 years in the future, what would you add to summarize our current era? I was thinking I would probably just clown around and just stock it full of like reality shows, like Jersey Shore, stuff like that, or maybe like celebrity gossip magazines, that sort of thing, and just shove the whole thing with just nothing but that sort of thing. It's like, okay, future, here you go. I imagine it would help formulate some opinions about our current era if I were to do that. So, let's see. You stated in the previous video chat wherever you live, yeah, you travel thoroughly in a radius around you. How far would you say that radius is, and typically how often do you walk it? Okay, I had to look up on maps and use the distance thing for that. Okay, so it was actually less than I thought, but the farthest I've gone outward by foot from where I am now has been about 4 miles. So it's like 4 miles out, 4 miles back. Um, I can safely say I know I've seen almost everything in about a 1.7 mile radius around where I am in like every direction. It's a little uneven though, because like say you have like a major highway for one area and then it's just nothing but a bunch of like downtown traffic after that. I'm probably not going to be spending much time around there. Whereas if it's somebody's saying Tuco walked 70 miles to town. I don't know the reference, but the most I've walked in a day has been 21 miles. So that was backpacking. So I can go farther, but these are days I'm also coming back and I'm going back to work. So, oh, good, bad, and the ugly. Okay, yeah, it's been forever since I've seen that. So yeah, I've seen everything, just about everything in a 1.7 mile radius. And each day I'm probably doing a minimum of 2 miles somewhere. So, but I can easily go 2 or 3. But yeah, I guess if I'm running, it might be more like 3. It can be, 3 total if I'm running. So running, it's less than if I'm walking. But, so, yeah, I mean, if I was trying to survive and walk, I'm sure I could walk much farther. And that was my only goal. But, this is just for like basic exercise, me being curious. But at some point I may get a bicycle again, in which case that'll probably quadruple my range. And I'll see a lot more because the forest goes a long direction. The forest goes a long way in one direction from where I am. So I won't run out anytime soon if I go that way. Yeah, I might get a bike in the near future, but that's just sort of been like lower priority for me lately. I'm happy I have forest access again. I was really missing that the last few apartments. Even though this apartment is, man, getting so hot in this one. With though I thought about it and I realized I still prefer being cooked than having them breathing mold. I do not get rampant mold in this apartment. It gets hit with sun, so that is, I prefer that to breathing mold. So if I have to choose. So, however, I am really dreading summer these days. It's like, it kind of sucks because I usually try to keep things like kind of clean and hygienic around my computer, but it's like if I'm just constantly sweating all the time, it makes it harder, because you have to like rinse off, but then you're sweating again in 20 minutes or like putting on headphones. So it makes things more grody than I like. I hate that. So maybe someday I'll have air conditioning, All right. I'm asking if I've played Pathologic. I played like an hour or so Pathologic, then got the feeling like this was like the gameplay was. See, okay, I'm starting to get a little bit dizzy right now. The door's more open, but I can go longer. Yeah, the gameplay wasn't really roping me in, so I ended up watching a playthrough of it, and I'm glad I did not try to play through it. It's just there's so many things you have to know about that game that are coming. That's just not my kind of gameplay. But I mean, it was an interesting world they created. Yeah, I guess I'm a certain kind of old-fashioned, and that I like a game that if you sit down and you give it an honest effort, your odds of being able to beat the game in some fashion are quite good. And I say a certain kind of old-fashioned because if you go to Nintendo hard, no, that wasn't the case at all. And a lot of like Commodore games, that wasn't the case. Yeah, like that'd be interesting. That's an interesting question. Like, what era of gaming did that sort of become the standard? That if you just sit down and give the game an honest effort, you'll probably be able to beat it. Like I want to say like late '90s maybe or something like that because I mean, maybe a little bit earlier when that first emerged. Somebody's saying probably Super Nintendo. Yeah, maybe. Super Nintendo had a lot more titles that like you could beat. Not the original Nintendo though, and like Sega, it still varies. Who do you call to get tips for Captain Zap? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, not Commodore. Although Commodore was all over the place because it could be so simple that yeah you'll beat it in like 20 minutes, or it could be just so cryptic but not intentionally so. Or yeah, so the chat's thinking maybe Super Nintendo was when good game design started solidifying. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's not that there weren't. I mean, there was exceptions to every era, but like with Nintendo, if you pick up a random Nintendo game, the odds you can just beat that, like giving it a fair effort, yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of picks that are not gonna go well because I think some of it was they were trying to combat like the video game rental market, so they didn't want the game too easy that you could beat in one sitting. But on the other hand, it might have just been game design philosophy, or they just like, no, you must suffer to enjoy your game, or it could have been just a carryover of game design left over from the arcades, which there was a real tangible reason to make it kind of ridiculously hard. So I was saying, Where's Waldo is the hardest NES game. I'm not too familiar with that, but I mean, possibly, because I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Ninja Gaiden is probably way up there. Battletoads is way up there. Uh, yeah, I don't know. Mario Brothers games might be the only NES games that have aged well. No, there's some others like I'm trying to think. I have to stop and think. I'm sure there were other NES. I don't know if I played. I don't know if I played Kirby on NES, but I played it on Game Boy, so my thoughts are kind of off on that. Kirby was pretty approachable. There are some others besides Mario. The I don't know. It might be somebody's saying Zelda aged okay. I think Castlevania is still pretty hard. The original. Has Ross ever talked about NFTs? Yes, I have. You can maybe the chat can fill you in on that or give you the video chat. I talked about it. In short, I'm surprised it's still going. NFTs. Yeah, that's my general thought on it. Do you think the Steam Deck has caused some games that traditionally be online only to change their plans in order to properly support the handheld? Unfortunately, I doubt it because the people who have some awareness of this and want their game to last probably aren't designing their game that to just die as soon as support ends anyway. And the ones that probably aren't giving much thought to it at all. And so they probably won't be influenced by Steam Deck anyway. So I think it's kind of like I think the people who care about their game and want people to play them in the future are already like not pulling crap on people. So it's it's just kind of a mess. It's like it's like multiplayer. It's like basic multiplayer design philosophy has been hijacked, you know, as to consider what's correct and normal has just been subverted. Oh yeah, somebody's asking when you're escorting Alex or Barney, they tend to get shot a lot. They're wearing no armor and cry out if they get hit. I think Barney doesn't wear any armor. Maybe not. Yeah, I thought he had like the civil protection outfit on. But do you have a plan to deal with this? No, I actually forgot about it, but I might just I mean, I could shrug off Barney. I think for Alex, I remember kind of going. I remember just finding Alex sort of annoying from a gameplay perspective. That's just like, all right, I have an FEC tagging along. Like, do I really have to deal with it? So I probably would have been just forging ahead anyway. So if she's getting shot like off camera, she's just going, then that gives me plausible deniability. So if she's behind me or just not where I'm looking, then I could deal with that. And I think Barney had some armor. So I have to check. So I could probably, but no, I actually forgot about that. Let's see, or just, are you willing to share how much your living expenses are in Poland? Honestly, everything's changing right now because there's general inflation, and before that there was housing inflation. Yeah, like we changed apartments twice, and I want to say during each time, like I think I looked at an index later. Well, no, we changed apartments more than twice, but like I noticed it the past 2 times we did. It's like in between them, like the average rent went up like 30%. It was just staggering. And this was before like inflation started hitting more globally. So this is just in real estate. So I can say in the past for food, it was roughly like a third to half the cost. Like if you're economical, like you can definitely get by for like a third of the cost for food. Okay, I will say internet, and I'm not saying this to rub it in, but since they asked, like for my internet, I used to have more upload speed, but they changed and I got more download speed instead. And this is why I'm streaming at 720 actually, because that's the only thing I like really need more upload speed for. Is 100 megabits per second down, 10 megabits per second up. And for that, see, that's the other thing. There's been inflation lately too. So if you would convert it, that would be roughly a little under $13 a month I'm paying for that internet. So again, I'm not trying to make people feel bad about it. It's just the only thing you should take away from that is that it really is a cartel situation for the internet in the United States. So let's see. Yeah, for housing, I have no idea what's going on right now. Yeah, well, saying if it only goes up 30%, you're lucky. That's 30% per year. So we switched twice, and it was like 30% the first time, then it was another 30%. So, and then that was before the more major inflation. So, yeah, I still wonder with real estate inputs. Yeah. What does the chat think? I figured there's 2 things that are likely to happen with real estate. One is at some point we're in another bubble, and this will crash later, and then maybe people can afford a house again. Or the other option is, no, there's like a third option too. The second option is it just slowly goes up forever, and this becomes sort of like feudal times where, the Lord owns the land and you just sort of work on it. You pay fealty to the Lord. But the third option is similar to the second one, where let's say there is a crash, but instead of regular people buying it, you have like big financial investment firms that just swoop in and buy up everything, and then they rent it out to average people, in which case, so I figure housing is either going to crash or else it's just going to go up forever. I have no idea which. So we may have already missed our windows, assuming we could even afford that, Yeah, somebody already mentioned the third option. Yeah, I don't. Interesting. Oh, yeah. I started watching a TV show that sort of ties in. I haven't finished it, but it's been interesting. It's called Incorporated, and it gets. I mean, I don't know if I'd call it a realistic take on the future, but it gets a lot of. It doesn't butter up a lot of things about the future, so it's an interesting kind of dystopian take. I'm not sure if it's going to be quite like that, but it's not the worst guess I've seen. If you want a science fiction show check out. Let's see. So it sort of ties into this mentality of corporations just buying up everything. Yeah, I mean, I think the plot premise is that government is just sort of like a afterthought in the future, and things are kind of wrecked ecologically, and it's all about like kind of competing corporations now. But it really dives into like the details of what that looks like. It's interesting. It's interesting. I was they did a better job than I thought they would. So. Oh, geez, somebody's asking a hard question in the chat. I want to learn a practical professional skill. What do you recommend, Ross? I mean, I mean, there's like personal survival stuff, and then there's also stuff that might be in demand. I mean, maybe the chat can help with that one. The Let's see. Would you consider programming practical? I mean, maybe, but that's a field AI is going to be encroaching upon. But yeah, maybe. But that's something that also might be a race to the bottom too, because programming, yeah, especially with programming, you can outsource a lot of that. So if you're competing against basically sweatshop labor prices, then they might. Uh, Somebody's saying carpenter, yeah, that might not be bad. Actually, I've heard plumber can be actually a decent one. Actually, I forgot about it, but I was thinking for one of my backup professions, because I was kind of also considering IT at one point. Well, another thing I could have seen myself doing, I should have been an electrician, because I like working with electricity. So yeah, somebody's saying carpentry, electrician, plumbing. Yeah, those aren't going to go out of style, I don't think. And those have practical value. Yeah, you have a good overlap of those, because those have practical value, but they're also likely to stay in demand and not get shut out. Yeah. Actually, a lot of blue collar jobs can be like that. Yes, skilled blue collar jobs might be your best bet. Actually, without, I'm sure others can make a good argument for other field professions, but just off the top of my head, that's one I would. That's one I would go with. Yeah, like if I had to start over like now, I might actually double down and think about being an electrician. So, like if I had to just start all over, and those may get taken over by AI eventually, probably not in your lifetime. I mean, maybe building it, but like maintenance, there's so many variables for that sort of thing, for maintenance, for to like be able to send some robot in there to deal with it. I think we're not even there with self-driving cars yet. Those haven't replaced things on the road yet. So if we're not there, we're definitely not there for like now you can maybe design a robot for doing parts of construction where it's really standardized what you're trying to do with wiring. But yeah, actually, I saw another movie. I forgot the name of it. Maybe somebody in the chat can figure it out. I think it was a Mexican one. It was definitely in Spanish, where this guy was like he was a working class Mexican guy, and his job was basically to go into this kind of VR center and hook in, and he would do like construction work using robots off in the USA, because that way they weren't having to pay. They were just paying through the contracting company. They're basically outsourcing it, but they were basically having the equivalent of foreign workers inside the country, because they were operating the VR. They were using VR and operating the construction robots through that way. It was kind of a loophole for it. I forget what I forget what the title of the movie was, but yeah, that struck me as something that wasn't a far-fetched idea. I mean, And yeah, he was basically just controlling this construction bot and like putting down like a beam, soldering stuff, that sort of thing. So I think that would be more likely before AI taking over that kind of work. Uh, but who knows? But even then, that's with construction. There's still maintenance, and that's an ongoing thing. Because maintenance is messy. You never know what you're going into with that. Not that construction can't be messy, also, but you can at least clear the site, lay down a foundation, try to do things the right way. But yeah, it's. But plus, I think with blue collar jobs, there actually has been a shortage of labor in a lot of them. No, there's not. Yeah, I mean that's the argument I was trying to make in the robot jobs video, is that yeah, for the individual that might be a good field to go into, but that's not a realistic answer for the scale of total jobs that we need. So it's like there might be a plethora of blue collar jobs, but oh yeah, actually that's another one. Though I've heard this can be really hard work, is stuff related to oil mining. Unfortunately, civilization is still utterly dependent on oil. I mean, we're just not there. And that's probably, and there's a lot of powerful forces that are gonna keep that as relevant as long as possible. So. Okay, some more questions. Let's see. Okay, well, do you still want us to recommend you game dungeons via email, or is it too much to read and reply? You're probably not going to get a reply if you do that, but I try to put that in a pile with organized. You don't have to. I've gotten a lot of recommendations, but you can. It's not a problem. So, yeah, don't feel like, oh, I'm letting Ross down if I don't send him a game recommendation. It's all right. I'm awash in games and game recommendations. So he's asking if I played the Postal games. Yeah, I've played the first one. That was it, the special delivery expansion. I've played 2, and I've played Apocalypse Weekend and 3. Postal is always kind of all over the place. Well, I feel like the first one was like the most consistent. And then the others, it's just like there are parts that are just amazing. There's parts that are just kind of like, all right, this feels kind of weak. They're just all over. I thought 3 was kind of weak. But I think there's been another expansion to 2 that I forgot about. There's been like a newer one that has kind of like a little more retro look to it. And there's been 4. So there might even be more that I don't know about. So yeah, Postal's one of those where I feel like it has loads of potential. Like I think I would have taken it a different direction thematically. I would have. I think I mentioned this before. I would have aimed for something sort of like lighter than 1, but not quite as zany as 2. So something in between there. Like what I'm thinking is something more like I think I mentioned this before. If you've seen the movie Falling Down, I would aim for something like that, except more intense and more comedy. That's what whereas Postal, the series, it definitely goes, it goes far into like the farcical end of things, which I feel like, I almost feel like they're kind of missing the mark in some ways, in that there's so many real world situations that you could turn it into a farce without going over the top with it, and they love to go over the top with Postal. So, or it's rather, it's on you to go over the top with it. It's on the player. I mean, just even in 2, I just thought they had stuff that was just brilliant. Like, all your objectives are just these mundane things. Get milk. Return the library book, pick up your paycheck, just these most mundane things. And then it's like the game would try to break you because you go to the bank and you have to wait in line. That's what I mean. It's like, so they don't have to go so over the top, in my opinion. Like, I think it would actually be stronger if they like kind of held themselves back a little bit, but like let the over the top comedy be more emergent from the player. But I mean, it's their series. So, but at the same time, that I mean, the over the top stuff could be funny. Like I think my favorite, like there was one scene I really liked in Apocalypse Weekend with you're going to, I think I mentioned this before, you're going to get something to eat at the Chinese food restaurant, and then like it's obvious like there's a zombie outbreak, and like the clerk is a zombie, like there's just, he's just kind of staggering behind the counter, and it's just like, and the postal dude saying like, yeah, can I get a chicken lo mein, but hold the something. He had like some special order, and the zombie's like blah 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 blah, and so it's like, and the postal dude's like, all right, never mind. Can I just get a number 7? Like it's like he's still hoping to salvage this. Like you could see it's a zombie, and like it's just there's no hope here. But he's trying to simplify his order. It's like, okay, he's not going to try and go for a custom order. Can I just get a number 7 or number 4 or whatever? Like he's hoping he can just salvage this and get his meal. Yeah, the Tourette zombie. So I don't know. I think a lot of the stuff where they go over the top, it gets kind of dumb, but some of it can be really funny. But I see a lot of potential in Postal. That's one of those things. After I finish the movie, maybe if I'm not destroyed by animation, I have some ideas for wanting to do like a Postal Machinima series. That would be more of the style I'm thinking. And I know someone who's like, who could do a really good impersonation of the Postal dude's voice, like the original guys. Yeah, like I can't do it very well, but he can just nail it. Like once I pitch shift him, Okay. I may start skipping more questions, but okay. Have you experienced any glitches in time or similar events that you've never been able to explain? No, the closest I've probably gotten is, like sometimes when I run, I can legitimately just space out. And I'll have no memory of like the past 3 minutes or something like that. If it's on like just kind of a gradual path, especially one I'm familiar with that I've done a bunch. Well, which is kind of great because running isn't the most fun thing in the world. So if I'm just losing memory, but I've been running this whole time, so I'm still getting the health benefits, then great. But yeah, I haven't really experienced that. Let's see. Oh yeah, this came up when I did the last Dead Game News. Apparently there's was it Ken Akamatsu, if I'm pronouncing that right? Apparently he's running for Japanese government, and he has a stance wanting to legally preserve games. Well, to me, it depends on of course I'm in favor of it, but like how interested I am, it depends, because there's kind of two sides of legally preserving games. One is just to say, one would be to basically just declare stuff like abandonware legal, and that would be a help. But that stuff's, and I care more about like the practical side of things. Like if you want to play an old game and it's under abandonware, you can probably find it and get it running. It may not be legal, but nobody really cares about these rights except people who would want to like shut down the site or something like that. The original company doesn't care what happens to it. It's only litigious lawyers that care about it. That's it. Like the rights holders don't really care. The developers are probably happy for you to play the game if you're interested in it. So it's just kind of a mess. But the other half is what I really care about, is these ones that are just literally impossible to preserve without the law intervening, because you need the source code or you need that client, that patch client or server software or something like that. So if he was actually to push things on that end, that would be fantastic. But my guess is it's probably just the former, where it's just, okay, this company hasn't been selling this game in 20 years. We're gonna step in and say that this legally becomes public domain and anybody can run it then, or host it, that sort of thing. I mean, that would be an improvement, but it wouldn't stop the biggest problem areas I care about. So let's see. So yeah, I'm certainly not against it, but I'm more for just going for the. I want the win I want the win scenario. So. Have you ever had a strong emotional connection to a game or character in a game? Not really so much the characters usually, but the game world. Yeah, I can really get into it. In fact, I think that's a whole lot of me wanting to experience so many games in VR, because it's like, oh, this is like next level of me experiencing that game world, and it can be about as good as I envision it when it's happened. I mean, it's just it's amazing. So yeah, there's all sorts. I guess I tend to get more sucked up in the game environment and the world, but the characters can kind of complete that too. So let's see. Okay, I'm gonna skip some more questions now. Sorry, just because I don't have like great answers, or maybe I've answered these before. I'll just pick the ones that I've. Okay, well this sort of. Okay, well, okay, yeah, what ones I have better answers for, I guess. They're saying they've noticed over time that their preference for finding a game they like has become highly dependent on the immersion factor, and they mean making a world seem beautiful, believable, and consistent with its art style. So while a game may not be hitting the highest fun factor, it's still really enjoyable from a presentation side. When you look for games you have interest in, do you find yourself prioritizing a game's art direction, setting more than the gameplay? No, it's kind of a mix for me. I'd say actually it's a little bit more in the opposite direction, where, like, okay, I mean, ideally I'll find a game that just knocks it out of the park on all fronts. But assuming it doesn't, then it kind of varies how I want to play it. Like if the game's, I do care a lot about like art direction. That doesn't necessarily mean, well, no, that absolutely doesn't mean like highest quality graphics or design, but it's just that I have to sort of like what I'm looking at. If I just hate art direction to a game, I probably won't play it. I mean, like, okay, just to pick on a game a lot of people like, I've seen the screenshots to a game called Sable, and it's all out in the desert. It's all this flat shading, and it has kind of a comic book look. Like it's very competent from a technical perspective, but it's like every screenshot I saw, for me personally, it just made me feel like blah. So it's like I just didn't want. I don't know. I think it depends on your independent psychology as to like what colors you like or don't like or something. And it just made me not. I mean, the premise might be interesting, but it's like, geez, out in the desert and colors like this. I think my least favorite time of the day is maybe like between 1 and 3 in the afternoon. It's just like the way the sun hits things then, I just don't like it. Like I like evening, I like morning, I like night. I just don't like that time of the day. I don't know why. So, yeah, somebody's saying they can't stand anything with lots of pink. So it's, so if the art direction just turns me off entirely, I'm very unlikely to play the game. But at the same time, it can have very simple art, but if I like the color usage, then great. Well, hey, yeah, okay, to give an idea of the bare bones here, in Captain Zap, I loved how the jungle looked. That was a moody Commodore 64 jungle. So yeah, we don't need like top of the line graphics, but I do care about art direction. And past that, I want something to hook me in, which is almost always either the gameplay or the story. Like something's intriguing me about it, or the gameplay is very fun, or I'm like really looking forward to what's next. If it doesn't have either one of those and it's just okay, I tend to give up on a lot of them. However, not entirely, because if it's a 3D game and I like how it looks and I like this world, but the gameplay's not doing it for me, and the story's just not doing it for the writing, or it may not even be relevant, then what I still may want to do is like make a note of that for later to go back and either Vorpex or Super Depth 3D plugin and see that world in VR. Take like a VR tour of that game. And there's been several I've come across that have been like that. So even then, it's like I still want to play it, but I just kind of want a tour of seeing this world, like it's in like I'm actually there in 3D. That still has an appeal for me in a lot of games, especially if the visuals are very good. Now, if I'm interested in the story, but like, let's say it's a 2D game or like the environment's not really wowing me, then I'll go for a playthrough. And I'm just like, okay, well, I'm not going to play this, but I'm curious about the story. I'll just watch the rest of this online for somebody who went through it. So it's kind of, yeah, it's a scale. So I need a certain level of art direction to get me in the door, which can be very basic sometimes. Like I played through that, was it like VVVVVV game? That one was all right. That didn't quite rope me in, but it was enough for me to keep playing. As far as like a basic level of design, but past that, I need something to hook me in. If it doesn't have that and it's just the visuals, then I just wanna. I just want to be able to run it in VR, basically. So, which I can for more games than you might think. So, but between Vorpex and Super Depth 3D, I mean Super Depth 3D is like it's not as good because it can't do like the full stereo rendering. It takes the Z buffer and just wraps the texture around that. So it's gonna have some visual artifacts compared to like being able to natively render it both one for each eye, but so there's kind of a hierarchy with this stuff for me. And the chat's recommending Cruelty Squad, but I saw the trailer. That one did not interest me from the art direction, and I'm not really interested in like games that actually are going for cruelty for its own sake, like even something like Postal, it's like that's certainly a game that has a lot of violence and like shock value, but it's like not necessarily trying to be cruel. It's just trying to like it's, for lack of a better word, I almost want to say some of it's sort of like a meta dark humor. Like it's I don't know how to say it. I mean, maybe Cruelty Squad does that too, but okay. So I don't know. It just didn't seem quite like my thing, and that's one where I did not like the art design, and it seemed like it was intentionally going for a real ugly look to it. So, okay. Has anything ever pushed you to your breaking point? Yeah. Let's see. And yeah, one of these questions. Would you rather go back to one of your hell jobs for 6 months or not be able to go out for a walk for 6 months? I think I'd have to go with not being able to go out for a walk for 6 months, because I could do maybe real intense aerobics like inside the apartment. I mean, it would drive me a little batty, but like with a cycle machine, I could use that, even though it's not as satisfying as, somebody says that just sounds like you're in prison. Yeah, but you still have your computer and entertainment. That's better than most prisons. But I'd have enough space to kind of move around. It would be more frustrating, but I think I still could get like enough exercise to sort of calm my head and maybe get used to it. that sort of thing. But going back to the hell job, no, that just would be. I mean, I was thinking the least worst of the hell jobs was probably the one where I had to set up bug traps in the forest, and I had just ticks all over me every day. And apparently, I've learned that ticks don't like clove, so maybe I could just spray myself with clove oil each day, hope for the best. And the other least worst was probably working as a kitchen steward, but on that one, I was working 15 hours a day. So that was not a fun job. So it's like I would just be signing over more of my life going back to one. I really don't want to go back to being a security guard or doing tech support where I'm timed or no. I mean, it's. I mean, there's a reason I call them hell jobs. You know, it's that they work on you in different ways. Let's see. How worried are you that the current droughts in Europe will become the norm in future summers? I'd say that's highly probable. And how do you think that will affect food availability? Dystopian 2030? Yeah, maybe. I mean, that's what I'm trying to figure out. We're entering a new era. I'm certainly feeling it. Yeah, like right now, like I'm just covered in like a light layer of sweat just from sitting here talking. So, and I have the fan going on me this whole time. Yeah, I mean, I don't know how it's going to play out, but probably not great. Yeah, and you mentioned Europe. I mean, what's the Southwest going to do in the United States? Like as water keeps drying up, you know, it's. Yeah, it's somebody's saying it's hot everywhere at the moment. Yeah, I can believe it. Maybe it's just as well I can't afford a house because I'm thinking, man, if I were to get one now or like maybe very slowly build one, like I would want one of those. I think they're called like, I'm not sure what they're called. Like they're heat transfer systems where they have a pipe that comes up like through the house, but then it runs underground where so that the summers are cooler and the winters are warmer, and it's a way to just to kind of like have minimal like temperature control. Like I would want something like that for sure. I mean, because I mean, if you've ever been in a cave, it is very cool. Like like I would love to have cave temperature in the summer. Yeah, that's like the one positive thing I can say about the previous apartment that got overrun by mold, is that it actually was tolerable in the summer. It wasn't that bad at all. But breathing mold wasn't worth it. So. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I guess the Southwest, like I've heard too, because it's just going to run out of water. So I guess if they want to keep it going, the only option, I guess they'll just have to pony up and put a lot of energy and resources towards desalination plants, or else I heard of like this really radical move to try to divert part of the Mississippi River over to it because the Colorado River is drying up. I don't know. It's going to be nuts. Like, yeah. Feel free to weigh in on this. In fact, I need to reply to a couple of emails of people who've wrote to me more. Now, I will read and reply to those emails eventually. Yeah, I'm afraid you may not get a reply if you're giving me a game suggestion because there's just so many of those. But yeah, for discussing the future, that's definitely a topic I'm interested in. Okay, yeah. Somebody's mentioning, I haven't played these, so somebody's mentioning X-Men Legends and Marvel Ultimate Alliance as games where you play as 4 characters in an action RPG. So. Yeah, look. Thankfully, Dungeon Siege wasn't the only one to do this, but they're still pretty rare. I mean, the first one apparently was a console exclusive, but maybe I could check out the others. Considering the latest advancements of AI and image creation and reproduction, do you still believe artists won't lose their jobs to AI, or you change your mind? Well, I guess it's encroaching. Yeah, I got it wrong. See, I should have listened less to what the news was saying, because I think self-driving cars still aren't really a threat to drivers, but for their jobs. But yeah, but on the flip side, AI generated it's filling the gaps for some types of art. Like it depends on what you're doing. So, but yeah, I think it's probably safe to say it's entering encroachment territory now. Somebody's saying we'll be for truckers soon. Well, we'll see. I mean, somebody's saying public transit is where it's at anyway. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, this is okay. I'll give a bit of a rant here, because just to show, because if it could seem confusing, my stance on things, or contradictory, but like here's my thought process. Like somebody's mentioning public transit. To me, that it seems like a no-brainer. Like to just develop railway in the United States as much as possible, because that won't work, because just for transportation, especially as gas prices go up, and it just makes so much sense. It doesn't mean every single last person has to use the train, or that works for all scenarios. But like we mentioned, truckers, that would be, you could have like the vast majority of trucking just eliminated and be more efficient and use less energy and cost less if you had a good railway system. Now you might still need trucks for like that last mile. So like, say you deliver it to a major city and then it has to go from there to a nearby city. Okay, well then you might need trucks for that. And then, so for transportation, and then like if you need to travel around the country and like a plane ticket's expensive, and driving is expensive too, requires some maintenance, that can make a lot of sense. However, once you do that, that absolutely would decimate trucker jobs, which could bring unemployment to like crisis levels. So it's like you have to deal with that problem. You have to have a plan for that problem too. That like, okay, you're going to have a lot more people who need to support themselves who don't have a way of supporting themselves. But on that, and on that note, it's like a lot of the modern economy is based on just like endless growth and like as much consumption as possible. And that's going to depleting the environment really. And it's going to cause survival problems down the run, keeping that mentality. We really need to scale down, but we still need everyone to kind of be okay. So it's like, that's another problem to do. So you have like this multi-way tug of war between like different things that you need to balance. That Russ doesn't understand how logistics works. You literally need the trucks. You can't have trains pull up to the ocean. Look, I just said like, okay, let's say fine. You have the train pull up to Virginia Beach, the city, Miami, let's say. And then once it's there, you unload it. And then from there, the trucks take things to the, okay, read what I wrote above. Not just, I guess I'm missing something here. Well, I mean, you could vastly expand the area. Yeah, the journey can be decreased. Oh, yeah, so you take 95% of the journey away from trucks, and it's cheaper for it. I mean, and then it's less maintenance needed on roads. Yeah. Obviously, you can't have a train pull up to like every single location, but you can have it pull up to a port, or a docking station. Trucks can literally go on to ships across islands. Yeah, well, fine. You deliver it to the major city that's located. Okay, so let's say you need to deliver it to the island. Okay, well, the train takes it to, let's say, Miami, drops it off there at a depot, and then from there you load that onto trucks and then take it off to the island and use a ferry or something. Yeah, and as people are saying, this is a tiny proportion of all deliveries. So if you were delivering that from, let's say, Los Angeles or Washington State, Seattle or someplace, then that's what, 95% or more of the journey, and it's going to be cheaper to move it that way. So, and that's less maintenance on the roads. So, no. I mean, it's like a hub. Well, like let's say you're visiting a friend, and they live in like a nearby town. You could take they live in a town by a nearby city. So let's say you take a train to like Chicago or someplace. They don't live in Chicago, but they live like 20 miles out from that. Well, then you get like local transportation from there. So it's and you're talking about 18-wheelers. A train can load a hell of a lot more than like a trucking fleet. I mean, it's and then you can. Well, I guess not at this point. I mean, for your energy usage, I guess I should say. But yeah, just you're saying I don't understand logistics. I think I do understand the basics of it. I think you may misunderstand what I was saying, but trains are much slower. Well, yeah, but you know what? Trucks are slower than planes. So if speed is the absolute priority, but again, that kind of goes back to what I'm saying. We kind of need to get away of the mentality of having everything immediately. Okay, people are arguing against trains are slower. Well, yeah, in the U.S. for sure. Yeah, with the current train network, absolutely. There's tons of places you couldn't even get a shipment from a train to. And the U.S. train network's decimated right now. But what? Okay, I think this guy just wants to argue. I shouldn't get too wrapped up in the chat. But the point is, yeah, that wouldn't solve everything, but that would get a lot of cars off the road, and it would be an incredible bang for a buck for keeping civilization running, but scaling down our resource usage. However, so much of our economy is based on the current level of resource usage, and if that halts, then a lot of people go hungry or even die. So we need to kind of we need a plan so that everybody is going to have enough to eat, everybody going to have enough to eat and have a place to live, which requires like way more radical solutions than what anything being proposed. The other thing is, I lost my train of thought. It's like, okay, with the economic thing. Oh yeah, with the economy, I think the economy let's say we weren't having like all these other environmental and population crises factors in it. I think the economy itself is just kind of fundamentally unstable because it's like, I feel like it's gonna crash one way or another. So if you know it's going to crash, you can take steps to prepare. So you can take steps so that you have a lot when it does crash. Anyway, so maybe it crashes and like the dollar becomes worthless and you have to reboot a new currency and it just doesn't have the same kind of staying power. However, you still do have lots of vital manufacturing or farms or stuff that has like real value no matter what the currency is or how it's being organized. So let's see. Sure, Brave Dave would have a lot to say on this. Yeah, he got blocked from he got banned from the U.S., unfortunately. I haven't checked this channel. So it's like there's so many things you have to... It's like you can't solve one problem without solving 5 others at about the same time. So it's... Okay, I agree with this person on that. It seems like a lot of people don't understand how much society relies on things they don't see. Yeah. I mean, like, okay, chat. Like, okay, just off the top, I don't remember. Off the top of your head, how much does let's say the average American, how much land is required to feed the average American? Like, it's a lot. I mean, it's a lot. Yeah, I agree with what some of the chat's saying here because I think I saw a video, there was this kind of symposium of all these different ecologists that were trying to examine like the state and I finally got an answer from them about the carrying capacity of what's the carrying capacity of the Earth sustainably. Well, most of them said it was between, so in other words, not relying on stuff we're going to run out of, or by extrapolating more resources that can be renewed. Most of them agreed that it was between, well, one guy, okay, like the optimistic estimate, I can try and find this video was, and this was by a guy saying he was being optimistic because he was kind of counting on technological advancements that are going to get us more bang for the buck with like food production, being able to feed everyone. His upper end was 3 billion. And most of them agree between, however, he agreed it would probably be a lot nicer for everyone if it was more like between 1 and 2 billion. And that was more what like the rest of the people thought it was. So we're way, way over. So we have to figure out like, I mean, and see, that's the thing, you get into negative. If you want the best long-term solution, you're going to have incredibly unpopular short-term things in the long short term. And again, I always like to emphasize this on the internet. While I am in favor of population reduction, I'm in favor of non-lethal. So no, don't kill anyone. It's just that stop more people from coming. Try to reduce population growth as much as possible. Have population decline is what we want. But see, again, that goes back to the economy question. So it's like, and that's a very unpopular stance. And also just like lowering the standard of living in as many areas as we can, well, that it's not just complete misery. So that might mean a lot less people owning a car, or having less variety of food, or just. But the alternative is mass starvation and kind of anarchy, maybe a couple decades down the line. So it's, these are incredibly unpopular stances, but that's my take on it. They're saying developed countries' birth rate is already less than 2 anyway. Yeah, but the resource usage is still way above where it needs to be. Plus, you still have population growth within the countries. So, but I guess from immigration. So it's like, yeah, the way I would compare this is like, let's say you have a runaway bus that's just going down a hill and it's going to go over a cliff. Right now, our foot is on the gas. And reducing population growth is like keeping your foot on the gas, but less. So instead of all the way down, okay, let's say it's only halfway down. So we're still speeding downhill towards the cliff, but we're not speeding quite as much. That's what reducing population growth looks like in my eyes. It's like we would need like an actual trend towards reversal to like put on the brakes, before to actually have it be meaningful. Because, let's see, even developing countries aren't seeing a boom. But see, we're already overextended. So like let's say to have things comfortably, like world population needs to be about 2 billion. Well, that means we need to just put on as many brakes as we can without having people just outright suffer. And by that I mean stuff like, food, housing, just healthcare, just real fundamentals, clean water. That doesn't. I mean, and I say this as someone who really appreciates my computer. I realize that my computer is not on the same level of priority as what I'm talking about. So, I'm not trying to like if my computer died and I could never have another one again, but we were getting back on track, I would understand. So. Okay, so I went off on a rant, but that's why when I say things that like sound contradictory, it depends on like what scale you're looking at. Because if it's just about something like inflation, but it doesn't figure all these other things into effect, then the conclusion for like the short to medium term is going to be different than the long term. So yeah, but we're probably headed towards dystopia one way or another. So hopefully it's not the worst dystopia. Okay. The jobs question just sort of prompted me to mention that. Okay, sorry, I'm skipping more questions here. Okay, well, I'll address this quick. They're saying Korean music company JYPE plans to release upcoming albums with no CDs in the future. Instead, only selling albums that come with collectible cards or a QR code for the music. How do you feel about that? Feels like it would put music in the same situation games is in now. No, not at all. I mean, from a legal standpoint, yeah, it's similar. But from a practical standpoint, no way. Just, okay, play the music. Now let's do like a lossless recording locally on your end. Congratulations. Now you have a copy of the music. You did it. It's safe. If that's why games are different from books, ebooks, movies, shows, music. Games, you can't just do that. So all those other things, it's like, fine, I'll make a local copy. Bam, done. It's saved. So, I mean, sometimes you might have to jump through some hoops to do the highest quality copy, but you can't really stop that for other mediums. So even if the company goes belly up in the future and you literally cannot buy a legal copy, there'll be some underground copy of the album out there somewhere that you can find. So it's yeah. I mean, you get the full thing on the client's end. Have you seen the trailer for the Gothic remake? I don't know if I saw the official trailer, but I saw I saw like some gameplay teasers of it. What do you think of it as the remake as a whole? Well, from what I saw of it, it looked like they were kind of, okay, see, I'm being nitpicky, but it looked like they were kind of losing a little bit of the magic regarding like the landscape. Like, even though the graphics are very dated, they did a fantastic job on the landscape for the technology they were using at the time. And the newer one, from what I saw, maybe it got better because this was like several months back. It felt more fake somehow, and just didn't feel as cohesive or look as good. Like, so I guess the original might have had better art direction on the landscape, and that was a big part of what drew me into it. So maybe it's improved, or I was just looking at the wrong spots, though. So. Okay, this is oh yeah. Recently, there was an effort to make a server emulator for VRChat that got cease and desist by VRChat themselves. And yeah, he was trying to argue this in the forums, and they got a lot of pushback. And yeah, well, some of the arguments they got was VRChat is a social VR platform with the user-generated content instead of a game. Thus, it cannot be preserved like any other game, dependent on a central server. Well, that is true, but there's more than one aspect of the game. Maybe some people are playing it just to see other worlds in VR, and that part is preservable. So that's not real. I've noticed this sometimes online. Like, some people, like, they'll see a game and they'll see one way of enjoying the game, the end, and that's it. So, and it's like, you almost can't communicate to some people like that. They're like, no, I might enjoy it for other reasons. Like I've seen people say it's like pointless to play Dark Souls if you, like with a trainer or something, or with assist to make it easier. It's like, well, no, there's kind of an interesting cryptic story there. The environment's really neat. Like you might like the kind of progression of the fights, even if you're not getting the authentic Dark Souls experience. So there's all kinds of things you can still enjoy from that. But to know it's them, it's all or nothing. It's like, no, you're either getting the Dark Souls experience or there's no point. And so you're going to see some, it sounds like they saw some people like that. Okay, well, the second point I'm much more interested in. They're saying content for one Unity-based social platform can be just ported around to another. Doesn't matter that both are reliant on central servers. Well, no, if it can be ported, the question is, can it be ported by the end user, or can it, like if you download it and then you could just port it over in Unity and then just fire up like a Unity engine level and see it that way? Or they're saying it can be ported by the parent company? Because if they're saying that, if the parent company has an online only game and they have not committed to an end of life plan for that game, then the odds are so incredibly against them doing anything about it once they shut it down. So it's safe to consider that a non-solution, because look, the situation's so bad that unless you can preserve the game yourself and make a backup copy, you should assume the company will never do that. Because what was it from my video? It's like 97% of the time they don't. So, that's a wishful thinking argument. That's fantasy argument to me. I mean, you might get lucky that one time out of 3%, but if it's even that high anymore. Yeah, and some are arguing, you're purchasing a privilege inside the game. Well, it depends on what the law says. Again, if you're relying on what the terms of service say, you've already lost. Terms of service are not legal documents. They are basically laying out the agreed upon terms. However, if those terms run counter to consumer law, then they're invalid. You can put anything you want in a contract. That doesn't mean it's legally enforceable. Or legal, even. I mean, I know something about that from working for Machinima in the past. They put stuff in there that violated the law. So, but some people are just gonna kind of bandwagon on what it is. I've noticed this. You see this psychological effect sometimes with games. Actually, I've seen it some with Linux also, where let's say you have the product, they like the product, but then you come in and show something that you really wish the product would do, and it actually is an objective shortcoming of it, and it doesn't look good. Like this is a real weak spot. However, the odds of this getting fixed are almost non-existent. What you'll see some people do is just take this psychological jump where, well, they're attacking the thing I like. I need to defend this. So I'm just going to write off this concern as not being valid. And then they'll find ways to kind of work backwards from that conclusion. And I think with some people, that's what's really going on psychologically. So they'll try to for some people, they just may not care, but it's like, if you don't care, but you can see how other people really do care about this, that's kind of a selfish attitude to take about it, in my opinion. Because there's plenty of things I don't care about, but I recognize that, other people do care about this, and if it's not hard to implement, or a lot of people care about this, then there should be a way to implement that. Whereas for some people, I think it's just like you're not even really having a rational conversation with some people like that. They may not even be consciously doing this, but what they're thinking is, I like this thing. This person's saying bad things about this thing, and I can't defend the product on the thing that they're saying about it. So I'm just going to kind of dismiss this as not being important and argue against them about that. So that can happen. So it's maybe there's a term for this, a psychological term that I'm not familiar with, but I've definitely seen that online. So you're probably better off saving your energy than arguing with those people. That's why I'm not even trying to change every last person's mind on this. I want the courts to look at this. That's who I want to change their mind. Or actually, they wouldn't even be changing their mind, just become aware of the issue and get them to lay down a ruling. Because if the courts say, no, Ross, what you're trying to do is impossible legally, like we're going to say that this is totally defensible, then I've lost on that front and I'm not going to pursue it further. Well, then I'm going all in on the dream software solution. Just, okay, fine. I guess we just have to go all in on AI ripping all these worlds and trying to recreate the games underground best we can, you know? I mean, let's see. But yeah, it's, so you're going to get, some of these people aren't, you're not really getting rational arguments, even if it might be dressed up that way. Yeah, or it's just a prick attitude. Like, again, like like if you have people who genuinely care about this aspect and this is a solvable thing, and you're saying, well, I don't care about it because I don't use it, even though, so I'm going to say this is stupid. I mean, I try not to be like that. I mean, like, there are all kinds of games that I recognize, well, not just games, but other things that, like, even if it doesn't affect me personally, like, I'm in no way against other people trying to, like, get the feature or something that they want, like, unless it comes at, like, a huge cost to something I'm using, you know, but that tends to be kind of rare, so. But yeah, maybe somebody has a term for that. It's like you recognize this is a real problem, but you're a fan of what they're attacking, so you're just going to defend it and dismiss the problem because that shatters, that makes it less comfortable for you to like what you're enjoying, you know. I think a lot of people want that, like, all or nothing mentality on things. So. Okay. See. Okay, I'm getting the one. I'm getting ones that needed more votes up for me to answer that I don't have great answers for, but I can tell my brain's fading a bit here. Well, this wasn't a bad one. This is again about VR chat. They're saying, a few weeks ago, they decided to remove the ability to mod the game by implementing easy anti-cheat. A situation like this, where VR chat is for the most part one of the only games that allows you to do what it offers. Yeah, that's pretty lame because it seems like the sane solution then is have some rooms have the anti-cheat where, like, okay, this is, if you want a safe experience, you go in here. And if you want something more wild, then you go out here. Like, I think Vermintide does that. Like, they have, like, the official servers that count for your stats and stuff. But if you want to just mod the hell out of it, then you can run it on the other servers. That seems like a move that's not really considerate for its player base. But they're asking, because, yeah, that's the everybody wins scenario. If you want the... how do you cheat in a non-game? Yeah, well, I mean, maybe they could, like, wreck the user experience somehow, but if it removes modding, I mean, seems like that's a big hit to it. Yeah, I mean, that's the sort of thing where you have to take the bad with the good. Or I mean, hell, if you support mods, you can even have, like, sometimes what you would see on private servers is have, like, their own, like, home, they have their own third-party anti-cheat stuff that you have to download to get onto that private server. So, whoa. Yeah, but it's saying, how exactly do you wrangle around something like easy anti-cheat on your computer? Do you just make peace with having a rootkit do whatever it wants in exchange for the endless number of VR worlds you can journey between? Or do you think it's a deal breaker and worth moving to one smaller social VR games? Well, I don't know. I mean, I guess for me, it depends on how big a security risk I think it is. If I think it's huge, what I would probably try to do is sort of, like, queue up all my usage for that. like what I might do is say, like, yeah, because a virtual machine might not be able to cut it depending on the graphics, or at least on Windows. Like, okay, look, let's say there's a lot of worlds I wanted to explore, but I consider this anti-cheat measure just a complete liability. I think most I don't, but let's say there's one that's like really bad. And I don't want this on my system. Oh yeah, that's what I would do. Okay, what I would do is queue up everything I want to do, and like, so maybe a few weeks or months from now, like I'm finally ready to play this, but I realize I don't want this on my machine for long. So I would make a disk image of my machine before I install that, back up that disk image, then install the anti-cheat. Maybe I'd have to purge some more personal information if I thought it was a huge security risk. And then while I'm on that, I consider my machine compromised, and I'm just using it to gather like the VR worlds that I want, or experience them. And then after I'm done, like if I was able to download stuff, I back that up somewhere, and then I revert back and just undo everything. So it's like it never happened. Yeah, I mean, I wipe the drive and restore from the disk image. So yeah, it severely dampens me wanting to play the game, but if I like it that much, I might give it a shot. So. Okay. Does seeing a well-known in real life actor showing up in a game ever take you out of the moment? Yeah, it can. And not a huge amount, but it can do that a little bit. Okay, again, I'm getting a bit lightheaded, so I'm gonna kind of skip more. Yeah, in the Carnival, I probably wouldn't have a dedicated arcade machine in my house. What do you think about those custom ones that have hundreds or thousands of games in one machine? Well, I think that's way more practical. I guess it cares, how much do you care about that form factor? Because to me, it's like there's two sides of it. There's just the games themselves, and I'm happy to play that on like a computer or something. I don't necessarily have to have, like having for the majority of games like that, having like the joystick and the buttons doesn't do that much for me. However, having the full arcade experience, like going there with like a lot of people playing the arcade games, that is something kind of neat in itself. However, if you're someone where you really do care about that form factor, yeah, that's a way more practical way to approach it. And yeah, you can have your kind of dream arcade machine then that way. Okay. This one got less. I think this one used to be higher up. They're saying, we're all aware of your determination to find weird wintry Christmas games. They don't even have to be weird, they're just ones worth covering. Games each year, but we very rarely hear your opinions regarding Christmas movies. What would you say your top 3 are? I had to think about this one. Here, I have the notes somewhere. Though only about the others. Like my favorite, no contest, is far and away National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. Like that movie just nails it. Like there's so much comes together in that movie. I think it's hilarious. It's just good all the way through. It's like it's both over the top and incredibly believable. Like depending on what you're looking at, like it nails like all these subtleties of like Christmas with your family. Like I love it. Like that movie is just that's easily my favorite Christmas movie. But let's see. For 2 and for the others, I had to like stop and think about it. I think number 2 and 2 and 3 are both kind of blurry in my memory, so it could be I'm remembering these as better than they are. 2 would be a sort of a cartoon short that I had to look it up. Almost couldn't find it. It's called George and the Christmas Star, and it almost has kind of like this Wallace and Gromit vibe to it, even though it's older than that. Where this guy, he's getting ready for Christmas and he wants to get a Christmas star for his tree, but I think the one he has breaks, or he decides he's unsatisfied with it. So he just looks outside and decides he wants a real star for his Christmas tree. So he goes and builds a space shuttle and goes out into space, but then he gets captured by space pirates. And I think he like runs into space bikers along the way. And I just remember liking it. And I think there might have been a singing robot, and maybe I didn't like the singing part of it, but I remember liking the rest of it. Like it felt pretty solid. It was like a good, solid Christmas special. So let's see. And for number 3, I'm hazy on this, but I remember a lot of neat scenes to it. Would be Santa Claus the movie. I remember John Lithgow's the villain in that, and they're like trying to sort of steal Santa Claus's power. I remember it being well done though, but it's been a long time since I've seen it though, so maybe it's not as good as I remember. But and then I had some runner-ups that they aren't my favorite, but they're certainly not the worst. This one was like really mixed for me. This one, like, I 50% think it's great, and I 50% don't really like it and could skip through like half of it, is Ernest Saves Christmas. So yeah, about half of it, I love it. And then the other half, it's just like, all right, I can skip this. Okay, we're being too sappy too long here. Come on. But it has lots of fun moments. I feel like the Uncanny Valley kind of hurt it in the long term, but the rest of it was pretty good. Polar Express, that one had a real, hey Vern, the scene where he goes into Vern's house, that was probably the best part of the movie. But yeah, Polar Express, it had like this kind of otherworldly charm to it. Like you do kind of feel like you're going into this other world in Polar Express, though the Uncanny Valley is quite real in that movie. So if it just weirds you out too much, I could totally understand. But I like the feeling that like it is very atmospheric, the Polar Express. I enjoyed that one overall. I mean, it's not my favorite movie, but as far as Christmas movies go, I'm not really into like the vast majority of. Oh yeah, for Christmas movies, I'm what? I'm going for ones that like are legit Christmas movies and in the Christmas spirit, not ones that are like technically a Christmas movie, because then it can be all kinds of ones. But and some other runner-ups are, at first I thought this was called the California Raisins Christmas Special, but it's not. It's called a Claymation Christmas Celebration. It's just sort of this Christmas music videos done in claymation, but it's pretty neat. It's also quite atmospheric. Like if you like claymation, you should definitely watch it. It's pretty first rate. Another one where I didn't really like the music and found it kind of depressing, but at the same time I found this very atmospheric and kind of gives me that otherworldly feel, is the cartoon short The Snowman. Yeah, that one's, I have real mixed feelings on that one, because it's like, it feels depressing, but at the same time, it feels a bit wondrous also. So it's kind of a mixed bag for me. And I guess the obvious ones that they've sort of worn out their welcome for me, so I can't really even think about them before, but are like Home Alone and A Christmas Story. However, if you have not seen those movies, then yes, they are good. But like, they're just worn out for me. So, though I still kind of like the music to Home Alone. It has like kind of like a spook. Yeah, I think it was John Williams. It's kind of like a spooky overtone to it, to parts of it. Let's see. So talking about Christmas movies while I'm just sitting here sweating. So I guess I'm getting more of the Australian experience with Christmas then. Okay. Oh, I missed this one. Is there any game engine technology or feature that you see in the past that you wish was more commonplace in newer games? And they're saying, oh yeah, they're saying Red Faction with a fully destructible environment. Yeah, or actually, Red Faction Guerrilla, they went even farther. Well, they didn't go that way in terrain as much, but with the buildings, that was fantastic. But I think they had some locked up proprietary thing with that. But it seems like with modern physics engines now, that wouldn't matter so much. But actually, I think there was yeah. Well, this person was a fan of Red Faction, is what they're saying. Yeah, I think there's a newer game like that, like Teardown or something with voxels or. But I was sort of hoping that sort of functionality would be in every game after it. Yeah, for shooters and action games, you kind of would want that, but that could be kind of hard because you sort of need limits to your terrain, usually, or maybe not, because then the performance might get crazy if you're really trying to. Well, most players wouldn't take it to crazy levels, so you could probably get away with that. And someone mentions pop-in reduction. Yeah, that's nice. They're saying games as old as Super Mario Sunshine managed to have both high draw distance and consistent looking detail. Well, I think we might be long last be getting that with Unreal 5. It sounds like they're just gonna, the engine itself is gonna try to intelligently handle the level of detail on like all sorts of objects. So maybe we could say goodbye to pop-in, but I'll believe it when I see it, you know. I guess for me personally, I probably sound like a broken record, but the one feature from game engines I want is just the ability to render in stereoscopic, so I can experience it in VR and don't have to jump through a dozen hoops when I want to run a game in VR to see the world. I mean, it makes an enormous difference, if not for gameplay, but like if you want to get immersed in the game, like there's nothing else like it. I mean, it just makes a very big difference, and on a much lesser degree, having decent anti-aliasing support. But that's less dramatic for me than VR. Where do you stand on discussions between highbrow and lowbrow art? Is it worth distinguishing between those categories, or is it just an excuse to feel smug about the kinds of movies, books, music, etc. that one enjoys? I haven't really thought about it too much. I think I'm probably more in between myself. I think for sure some of this is to feel smug about kinds of ideas, but to me it's more about like what's being communicated, you know, and if it like like one of the like a movie I think is like brilliant in this regard is actually RoboCop, because at surface level that's lowbrow. It's about a guy becoming a cyber cop and taking down all the bad guys and just violent over the top as hell. It's hilarious. It's just an awesome movie. But if you're looking, it's also like a pretty like smart commentary on like a lot of aspects of society and modern culture and consumerism, and like it's yeah. Oh man, maybe there was a meme I saw on this. Oh man, maybe I can find this. Oh, well, awesome! I found it. Okay, somebody had this meme. Here, I'll post it in the chat if I can. Yeah, I just did a search. Okay, come on, let me. The hover text is making it so I can't read it. Come on. Yeah, okay, I'm posting this in the chat. Remember in the RoboCop movies when corporate America aids criminals and helps incite riots so they can lower property values and buy up the city while privatizing that city's police force? Haha, science fiction is crazy. Yeah, that one's... That was great. Yeah, I'll put make a note of that. So it's yeah. So you can have both, really, because Starship Troopers is kind of like that too, where and I vastly prefer that to something that's like preachy. It's just like if you get it, you get it. That's such a that's such a much more fun way of doing it because everybody wins. Uh, the But yeah, for other arts, like with highbrow, sometimes I feel like people are looking for things that may not actually be there. It's just that things are vague enough you can kind of insert whatever you want into it. And like for lowbrow art, I mean, if you enjoy it, great. I mean, like on my wallpaper quest, I've been slowly going through all these artists I like on DeviantArt, and a lot of it probably would be considered more lowbrow art. Where I'm just thinking this looks like it would be like an awesome fantasy landscape or sci-fi landscape, and I just think this looks cool and awesome, so I'm saving it. So that's probably more in the lowbrow sort of things. There may not be any real message other than this looks awesome. So I mean, I appreciate that. I guess if I was gonna give the counter argument to that, it would be sometimes like with more highbrow art, you can kind of communicate things that aren't possible with lowbrow art that you can maybe reach more people than you would if something's just for entertainment. Like, I mean, it's not really my favorite movie, but just one that popped into my head would be something like the Joker movie. Like that's that's kind of both because it's a comic book movie, but at the same time, it's trying to communicate deeper messages. And it's open to interpretation on a lot of things. So that's and you can't and you're not going to get the same kinds of messages as you would from like a typical comic book movie. So yeah, they're both comic book movies, but you're getting. I mean, I think you can make an argument like Joker is more of a highbrow one, but it's either using the comic book premise as a vessel to try to get more people to see it. So, like, I bet there's a lot of people who have seen Joker that haven't seen Taxi Driver, for example. So, I mean, I don't have a problem with that. It's, yeah, if people, I think it's when people start, okay, well, I guess another thing, there can be some people who just praise some things like they're holy documents and like try to shame you for not liking it. Yeah, that's just kind of dumb, I think. But on the other hand, other people can sort of equate two things where they're, you say, yeah, Joker, Batman, and Robin, they're all the same thing. So they try to equate the lowbrow art with the highbrow art, in which case, yeah, they're kind of missing things. But if somebody's saying that, they're probably not going to get it anyway, so I wouldn't worry about it, Okay. Well, this is somebody in the chat asked this. I just noticed that. How long would it take you to put together a link list of these artists and their wallpapers? Really love to see your art list. Okay, well, like 90%, maybe 80, 90%, because I've added to it since then, of the artists are in a forum post I made. I think it was actually, I linked to that in one of the past video chats that, it's in the Curse Farms forums. But, I mean, I can update that later. But the thing is, I'm just picking out the ones I like. So, and I'm just throwing them all in one folder, really. So we would need something that we might need some AI help on this one to actually locate the source of all of them, where it looks at my whole directory and then looks at all the pages of the gallery pages of these links and then just sorts them until it gets a match, and then sorts them until it gets a match, and then we could probably identify them all that way, because I wasn't really making this as just I don't want to like undercut the artist. Like if they're selling a copy, I'm just posting the copy on DeviantArt, or maybe I upscaled and modified it. It's like I'm not like I'm fine with sharing this. It's just that I don't want to like screw the artist on it. If I'm doing it, if I'm just doing it myself and saving what they've released for free on DeviantArt or someplace, well, that's not much of a loss. But however, if I'm making it all one pack, I don't know, maybe that kind of cuts into what they're trying to do, and I'm not trying to step on any of their toes. So you guys would have to, so this is a technical problem. Maybe you guys can figure this out. But I'm fine with sharing my list. It's no problem. Or maybe what I'll do is I'll stream one day. I mean, this still isn't as satisfying a solution, but I could stream one day in thumbnail view and just go down so you can kind of see everything. But it's not as good high resolution that like I feel like I'm ripping off the artist. But yeah, I'm pretty sure AI recognition is at the point where if you say this image is in one of these galleries and okay, here's the image, scan it, figure it out. I'm sure it could process that, but you might need a custom thing to do that. Maybe you could like run a scraper on those web pages to get the originals and then compare the downloaded collection to that one. It could tell you like which web page it came from. I mean, this is not an impossible task here. So, okay. Any opinions on Microsoft Mojang taking the ability to moderate chat away from server owners by adding an extreme list of censored words? I wasn't aware they were doing that. This is one of those things where, like, I kind of, like, you could do that to any game I play, and I personally wouldn't care, but I could see others caring about that. And on a larger level, it's sort of a canary in the coal mine because, okay, well, if they're taking that away, what are they taking away next? You know what I mean? But, because, okay, it's like, you know what, maybe we shouldn't have all these mods here floating around, or hey, maybe you have to get Microsoft approved to have your mod on to have a mod on the site, and then that costs a fee or something like that. So who knows what's next, you know? It can kind of erode things. It seems like you should, monitoring away from server owners, I don't really like that trend because like I can totally see the need, like let's say you have kids playing Minecraft, you want to make sure they can only play on servers where the chat's moderated. That's fair, you know, but that doesn't need to be every server, you know, adults can play it too. So like, I mean, and if you're on servers, like you should put whether you have that moderation option on or not. So it's, you know, I'm a fan of everybody wins solutions whenever possible. They're not always possible, but this seems like an obvious area. It is. And large companies tend to never even consider that for a lot of things. That's been my experience. Just one way we'll do it, and that's how it's done. Yeah, so. Okay, I'm skipping some more stuff. I have heard of Diggle's The Myth of Fenris, but I haven't played that one. That's one of the questions. Oh, somebody's asking my opinion on paid mods. I guess I don't have a strong opinion about it, but I feel my standards are kind of high if you're asking for money on something. Like, you have to unlock something I'm just dying for, or if it's like a full campaign or something, and I guess the actual rights holders they're okay with it. And even then, I want something I can save and run offline too. So sometimes these mod distributions aren't set up like that. Well, it's okay. I'll make this one kind of quick. They're saying thoughts on a Supreme Court West Virginia versus EPA decision made some weeks ago before their summer recess. Yeah, I saw that one. I think the basic argument was I think the basic conclusion was that the EPA cannot regulate carbon output. Like they're saying they can't legally do that. It's the sort of thing. My basic thought on it is like on surface value, and maybe entirely that's not good. But my understanding is the EPA had just been kneecapped just a long time ago, so that we were letting all kinds of things slide that shouldn't. So this is best case scenario, this might wake some people up that the EPA does not have your back, and we're just not making any effort, really. Like I feel like we are not treating global warming anywhere even close to seriously. Like the way I feel like the way we're treating it is like, let's say a house is on fire, and you show up with a cup of water. Except even maybe that cup may have a little bit of flammable oil in it. So it's like it might put out some of the water, but then maybe some of it can reignite, and then we're going to throw that on the fire, and that's how we're handling it. Like, I think there's like a total misunderstanding. Maybe not for people in power, maybe some of it's a misunderstanding of the scale of the problem, and some of it is just like a complete refusal to change anything. It's like, yeah, there's some of it's misunderstanding, some of it's a refusal to change it because that involves too many unpopular decisions to treat it seriously, and others just won't care. It's like, well, I'll be dead by the time this really gets rolling, so what do I care? Like, especially for like older members, or they figure, well, if it gets really bad, I have my private bunker, so I don't care. I'm just gonna get paid now, and that's not an attitude that's helpful for the long-term survival of the human race, but we'll see what happens. So, yeah, I'd say that the positive aspect of this is maybe this will wake some people up that we're not even pretending to solve things now. If like the EPA can't even regulate it, so. I've played some of MDK, but didn't get too far into it. Maybe I'll do more of that sometime. Okay, I'll mention this. They said this question's been bothering them. I can remember on previous video chat you mentioned some cloud storage you got a good discount on. I can't remember what it was. Well, the thing is, I may have gotten a limited time deal. I'll tell you what I did get. The company was Starchive, and I got, I think for $85, I got 1 terabyte of storage for life. I mean, obviously, if the company shuts down, I won't get that, but I've had it for over a year now, maybe a year and a half, still working. Though I'm a little worried about them because they've added this feature about NFTs since that. So I'm thinking, that's not a good sign. But 1 terabyte for life, the longer it goes, the better a deal it becomes. However, that deal may not exist right now. I did see another one, and I forget the name of it. And the place I saw both of these is a place I go frequently to check for free game news. It's indiegamebundles.com. And, well, I go from there, categories/free, and that gives me like a news stream if there's like free to own games. But on the side, sometimes they'll have like ads about it, and then if they have like the really good cloud storage stuff on there, that I've seen them a couple times that way. Well, I saw some commentary on another one where they said that this is for a different service. Somebody used it, that they got banned with no recourse if you host copyrighted stuff. So if you're backing up copyrighted stuff, like for me, that'd be abandonware, but I guess I won't put it up there. I've mostly been using it to trade files for people helping me. You might want to password encrypt that just to make sure it's not. I mean, it's kind of, check their terms of service, but it's kind of dumb if it's not shared, and if you're literally the only person who can access it, then it seems, but I guess maybe it's like a liability thing. Yeah, I mean, if it was a shared file, yeah, I could see where they might have to crack down on that. But oh yeah, this is a good question. I don't have a great answer, but I have a good alternate answer. Who would you say is your favorite idiot video game protagonist? And I'm not sure, but when I thought of like one of my favorite idiots, like characters, one that jumped out to me was in season 2 of The Wire. There's a character called Ziggy, and I think he's like related to this guy who's like works on the docks, but has sort of like this underground like smuggling operation going on, and he does so many stupid things that cause such big blowback. Like it was just fast. It was like watching a train wreck. It was incredible. Like like he causes so many problems that like people want to kill him, or like or better yet, like get other people implicated so they want to kill them just because he's making just such dumb decisions, and it just has kind of like this happy-go-lucky approach to all of it. It's just like, oh wow, this guy is like. So I appreciate idiot characters like that just go from 0 to 60 in terms of chaos, like that unfolding around them, like just because. Like I'm trying to even remember maybe they start fights they totally are unprepared for. That's characters that get way in over their head. I appreciate ones like that. That's but I have to think about like just idiot characters that I'm sure there's some good ones I'm just not thinking of. But like I don't like characters that are like losers and they're kind of pathetic, and it's like, oh, he's so pathetic. I don't find much humor from that. But if they're just okay, here's the easiest cheat answer: Beavis and Butthead. They have virtual stupidity. Yeah, they are perfect. That's a perfect idiot character. Idiot protagonist. Yeah, so there's. Yeah, ones like that. Like, some seem. It's like they're. It's like, here. Let's like make fun of the character who's a loser. It's like, well, I don't really find that funny. I mean, it's just some. Like at best, it tends to be just kind of weak, and at worst, it's kind of mean spirited. It just. But if like that character can set off a chain of events that causes just chaos, well, then that can be pretty good. So Beavis and Butthead are kind of losers, though. Well, yes and no. Like, it's... Beavis and Butthead mentally do not embody being a loser. Like, mentally, Beavis and Butthead are not losers. Like, they're not afraid of things normal people should be afraid of. It's like, like if they just want to set fire or do something, they don't worry about the consequences of this. It's like situations where they're obviously being losers, they don't let that get to them. It's like maybe they're because they're just too dumb to know otherwise. So I guess that's what. Whereas I'm thinking of something like Bernard from like Day of the Tentacle or Maniac Mansion. I mean, he's kind of a loser character, and they make fun of him, but it's just like, this doesn't do anything for me. They're just making fun of him. Whereas, Beavis and Butthead do not mentally embody being a loser. I'll say that. They can be losers, but they do not let that discourage them in any way. So. Yeah. As somebody said, consequences are an alien concept to Beavis and Butthead. Exactly. So it's... Yeah, I mean, there's a loser with where you are in life, and then there's also being a loser as a state of mind, I think. And they're not losers as far as a state of mind, in my opinion. You know what? Beavis and Butthead are constantly enjoying themselves in life. So it's like I was just thinking of I was thinking the episode where they have to work a late shift at Burger World, and like they're fighting, and like and some and something throws up into the ceiling fan. They're like, whoa! So they end up throwing just everything, like ground meat, fries, drinks, all into the ceiling fan. Just, yeah, it's yeah, but Beavis and Butthead don't have like shame in particular. You know, they have yeah, they have confidence. They don't have shame. They aren't afraid to take risks. They're not. Yeah, they're not. Yeah, it's not holding back their life. Yeah. Them being afraid to do something is not holding back their lives. I mean, other things sure are, but it's so yeah. I think that's the difference. It's yeah, it's more complicated than that. Okay, I should pick again. I'm skipping over a lot. Just but yeah, if you like the characters that just they're just a walking train wreck and don't even understand why. Like the season 2 of The Wire, that's one of the best I can remember. Ziggy, it was amazing. I was just my eyes were glazed over with this smile on my face. Was like, what is he going to do now? Like, yeah, I'm a big fan of like characters who have no idea what they're doing, like escalating a situation far beyond them. Like you know, so okay. I'm just still browsing their questions. I'm thinking, well, do I have much of an answer on this? And it's mostly no. Uh, well, okay. Somebody's asking about what I think about procedural generation. Oh, and games for uses other than map creation. Oh, which use procedural generation for combining monsters. Yeah, well, that guy. Maybe we should have more of that because, you know, my first thought when they mentioned that was the the clothes in quarantine. That was kind of procedurally generated. Well, maybe not generated, but it was kind of randomized, pulled from a pool of things, and that kind of worked for quarantine. So yeah, or sometimes you see that with like naming schemes for characters. Like if you want to generate a name, yeah, I think that has lots of potential. Especially if it's a game that has like a bit of humor to it, you know. But it can be for like situations too, like maybe if you have a complex roguelike or something like that where you never know what's going to come up. I guess I guess we're kind of mixing up procedural generation with randomized from a list though. But yeah, as AI gets better, you can maybe vastly extend that list that it's generating. So as long as it feels fresh and not too random, I guess. Oh boy, getting a little dizzy here. Okay. I'm just gonna skip more questions. Do you think the VR game space has stagnated, or do you think the barrier to entry is still too high? Uh, it's kind of a mix. I do think the barrier entry it's maybe gotten higher because like you don't have as many mid-range ones anymore, or else they've gone up in price, and then Facebook's trying to pillage everyone in terms of rights and brick the devices once they end support, most likely. Yeah, and then they raise their price, and this is during the middle of what we still have chip shortages. I mean, I don't think you can still get new video cards at original manufacturer price. So that hurts. And then you have inflation going on. So yeah, that all adds to barriers. And I think stagnating is the wrong word because there's a lot going on, like with new headset developments. I mean, I am keeping my fingers crossed on the new Pimax stuff. Actually, maybe double because the Pimax 12K seems to have just everything. But I read recently that they're going to have multiple models. So maybe I can get one that is tethered and is not a standalone thing with its own processor and wireless, which no doubt drives up the price. Maybe I can get that for cheaper. And man, that would still be like a dream machine for me. So, and I think I think it was Vario did something exotic with their lenses, but I think like the other industries, I think Pimax is going to have something similar too. So there's a lot going on. So, however, I could see it kind of peaking in terms of interest, but that's not the same as stagnation, because stagnation means it's done. There's no new development. It's not going anywhere. And there's plenty of new development. It's just that I could see it peaking out in the number of people who use it, because there could just be barriers that people aren't going to. Yeah, and I'm still. But other things are more precarious than I like. For instance, I'm not aware of anything that does what VorpX does for a lot of games, which is true stereoscopic rendering for hundreds of games. There's no other game in town that does that. I mean, I think, okay, well, there is like Helix Vision, but that's like dead man walking because you can't even run that on newer drivers and you need an NVIDIA card. I think it may not even work on the newest NVIDIA cards. So it's kind of a hack that was sold as a solution. I think it's just not going to survive in the long term. So that really sucks. So I'd love to see more happening on the software end of things. I mean, for me, the killer app for VR is VorpX because that opens up hundreds of games I can get full 3D in. It's not the full VR experience, but it's working with all of gaming history pretty much. I mean, there's lots of games you can't get it working on, but there's hundreds you can. And I'm sure that you can think of some games you would love to see in real 3D. So, yeah, so stagnating isn't the right word, but it's kind of, I'm not sure what the right word is for what it's doing. Development's still coming, but it could be peaking in terms of interest. That wouldn't shock me. Okay, well, I'll get into this. They're saying, why isn't there more piracy initiative for the preservation of media, games, music, movies? Well, you can't really do that legally in most countries. I mean, in some you might be able to. So that shuts out any sort of like respectable or legitimate organization from endorsing that, and it's all underground or enthusiast stuff then. But also, and they're talking about, they're saying copyright only exists because of lobbying of big companies to keep monopoly. Well, there you go. You know, I mean, I kind of see like reforming, or some might say abolishing copyright as it's kind of like saying, the monarchy is a bad idea during the Middle Ages, during feudal times. Like we can have a better system than like the king or lords who can just cut our heads off. It's like, well, yeah, we could, but they have the power, so good luck. Like that's kind of how I see it. That's why I like to focus a lot more on practical solutions rather than like what's strictly legal, because it's a long shot with strictly legal stuff. Whereas if you're just going for practical, there's all kinds of preservation going on with abandonware. I mean, it's in fact, the older stuff is better preserved than the new stuff because it was less complicated, and they didn't have the option to have half the game on the server which you can't access. Like it had to be shipped with the game. So that makes it a hell of a lot easier to preserve. Okay, somebody's asking if I heard the Conspiravision album. Yeah, like the re-release of the Deus Ex music remastered by the composers. I did get to hear it. Absolutely no offense to the composers, but I felt like it felt like kind of a mix, and some of them just didn't do as well for me. I think it's because they nailed some stuff so well the first time around. And also, I kind of like, I don't think it's just like nostalgia and association with it. It's like, I tend to like more distinct music where like the notes really stand out. Unless, I mean, soft music can be good if it's done really well, but I felt like it just didn't quite translate for me for the second attempt that they did on it. And I say it's not just nostalgia because I remember when I played Sonic Generations, I heard, they have different music for the modern version and the classic version. And I heard the music they had for the classic reimagining of, what was it, Crisis City from Sonic 06. And I had never played that game. I had never seen a playthrough through it. I had never heard that music before. And I heard the one they did for the retro version where they kind of kept the instruments more distinct and like with the distortion guitar. And I heard that, and I thought, oh, wow, this is pretty good. Like, it had one part that was really kind of jamming to. So it got me curious about the original music, which went for more of a mix of symphony music and some electronic elements. And I heard the original, the Crisis City. I thought, oh, this sounds so much weaker. Like, it's like, wow, the remix is so much better for this kind of more distinct instrument style they were going for. So it could just be my preference. I don't think it's just, because I think there is room for improvement on the Deus Ex soundtrack, but it's like they got so many things right, it'd be really easy to screw up too. So, but yeah, I still have the utmost respect for the music they made before. I mean, they're musical geniuses as far as I'm concerned. It's just that the newer one just didn't quite do it for me. So it could be maybe, okay, I mean, this is pretentious as hell for me to say this as someone who just, I'm not going to compose good music. But maybe their talent is better creating new stuff than rather revisiting their old stuff. I mean, for my taste, because I've heard other stuff like Alexander Brandon has done that, like, oh wow, this is still really good, So maybe he shouldn't revisit his stuff. Just keep moving forward. Just keep making new stuff, Let's see. I have not seen the trailer for Rec Station, or Recreation, spelled W-R-E-C-K. Maybe I did for that one. Is that the... Okay, he links to the trailer. Oh, yeah, I saw for that. Yeah, oh, yeah, I did see this one. I'll just have to see what comes out of it. I mean, I wasn't seeing much done that Trackmania doesn't already do. But again, that sort of depends on your taste too, because like there's some games where you see a new game come out and it's obviously kind of a clone of an existing game, but you're hungry for something different. And so you're happy to play the clone. I'm like that with plenty of games. I'd say not so much for Trackmania because they did a really good job on their environments. Like I'd rather, and the visuals on this one, at least in the trailer, I mean, they're very competent, but they don't, I like the art direction better on some of the Trackmania stuff like Lagoon and Valley, the older Canyon, more than this. So if I want to just play like a wacky course, I think I'd rather just play something on Trackmania, but they could prove me wrong. This is where, since I'm spoiled for choice, I like how the look of the older Trackmania stuff is better. But yeah, that could surprise me. I can be kind of an environments junkie. Okay. That is a fantastic question. Maybe I'll remember it for next time. I didn't see it. If you could gain the abilities of any video game character, which character would you choose? That's a really good question. I have to think about it. Man, as I said, there were a lot of questions this time. Is there a specific reason to keep games of future game dungeons secret? Yeah, well, a couple reasons. One, I just like the surprise factor of it. But two, like, let's say I say what game's coming next, and it's a popular game, and everybody's gonna like start forming all their opinions on, well, he better say this, he better say this, before I've even made it. And so you're kind of going in with more expectations, and I think that kind of makes the experience like less fun for a viewer, or it does for me, I think, if I know exactly what's happening. And the other is, let's say it's a more off the beaten path game, and they look at the game like, this sucks, I'm not gonna watch it. Like this game. Whereas I may have a very exotic take on it. So I think if you're coming in with like less expectations, you'll have a better. It's the reason I try not to watch movie trailers now. I just try to get just enough to know, do I think I might want to watch this movie? Okay, if I do, I don't even want to watch the trailer. Because it's like, I don't want it spoiled for me. I don't want the expectations. I want to just go in and have the experience. And if it's a good movie, I'll enjoy it more that way, just going in blind. So it's that same kind of mentality. I'm trying to keep the experience more fun for you. This is how I would want it, you know. So let's see. Okay, I'm skipping some more. Some of these are decent questions, but they just take me time to think about. Oh, okay. Well, it's okay. I'll say that they're saying this summer has been extremely warm. While taking action against climate change is becoming a larger priority for people, I worry that we may have missed the window of opportunity where we can effectively address it. I fear that continuous wars, pandemics, and shortages will cripple our ability to invest in a green future. What are your thoughts on this? You're gonna hear some of my thoughts actually in the next video, even though it's next Game Dungeon. Even though it's not really about this, it's just that something. It's actually a small minority of this. It's just something played into it so well. I don't think we've lost all. I think we've passed many. My opinion on this is we've passed many milestones that to preserve life the way we're accustomed to and the way we've known it, yes, that's probably gone. However, I don't think it's actually 100% hopeless. There's a trump card we can pull out on this that's it's a dangerous one, but not everything, it's not hopeless. So I'll just leave it at that. That there is a devil we don't know versus the one we know. I'll say that. But I'll reveal you'll find out what that is in the next episode. But it's also kind of a fog, like how much, like I mean, if we were to mobilize against it, like the way we did with World War II, I think several things might still be too late, but we might be able to open up a lot more doors than we realized also. But yeah, we've passed milestones for some things. Like we've got some feedback loops going, so it's yeah. I mean, it's a complicated thing because it's not just climate or global warming. That's actually it's the core issue is what's I learned the term for this watching that ecology video, overshoot. It's where we're just using up too many resources and just we're just overextended. I mean, even global warming wouldn't be an issue if we had like a tenth of the population, most likely. So it's yeah, we're on our way to some sort of dystopia, but I think it's still, I still think it's very much in the air what exactly that could look like. So, but yeah, maybe just hot as hell summers might. I guess my only worry is fake solutions. Like, I mean, we need to do stuff that like tangibly makes like that just. We need something like the majority of scientists and ecologists say, like, yes, this will dramatically help. If they say, well, this would, but you're packaging it in with something that's going to be that's going to undo everything, then no. I mean, we should listen to more scientists, I think. So. Well, okay, I'll answer this one real quick. Are there any trends you regret not being a part of? Maybe, but I found I'm so busy. It's like I don't. It's like I wonder even where I would have time for it now. So if I'm just in this constant stupor of trying to get things done, then that kind of takes my mind off of not being part of trends. So. So I'm still looking through questions. There were a bunch this time. We'll use another gimmick episode for Freeman's Mind. I have no plans to, but I never know 100%. Okay, I've seen some that I've actually answered before. Okay, I'll answer this. Will the movie contain cheeky commentary on the state of the world? Your questions on if systems can overcome corruption, other themes you sometimes talk about in these chats, some videos. Not intentionally. I don't plan to have any. I mean, there could be some stuff that like maybe there's like a little bit of overlap, but that's not that's not the focus. I just want to make a fun movie. Like that's just this is if I'm making a movie, I'm making the kind of movie I want to watch. It could put it like this: if there's going to be a message, well, the message in here is going to be very lowbrow from my perspective. Like not as bad as something like Three Stooges level where the message is don't do that or something. It might be a little more complicated than that, but no, it's not really going to tie into that. However, I think it is going to contain many psychological truths in it just because that can believe. Look, way people, I've said before, I'm a big fan of realistic human behavior. And if you have a chaotic situation, things can get interesting. So it's, well, I don't want to reveal too much, but yeah, it's not going to be a commentary movie. If there's commentary in there, it's a coincidence, I think. It's adventure comedy is what I want to go for. So like was there? Again, it's not really going to be like Ghostbusters, but I'm thinking of like, well, okay, yeah, does Ghostbusters or Inner Space have like a message or commentary to it? It's like, well, maybe a little bit, but not really. This is mostly just fun movies. Or Back to the Future, that's. Okay. What are your thoughts on transhumanism? Could it be that humans may have to start radically adapting themselves? Technology as hyperclimate change worsens. No, I don't think so. I doubt it. I mean, we can maybe see some medical implants that give you an advantage, like better health and focus and concentration or something. But I think it's still well within science fiction. Uh, the Yeah, because like transhumanism, that's where you're like kind of blurring the line of like what it means to be human. I think the most of what you might see is maybe like especially younger people in particular would have uh, like their brains might have developed in a different way, like so how they're very so they may be. I know people use the word like digital native, but I mean maybe that's the term I want. Where they're like they can do a lot of navigation of systems far faster than other people, but they might suffer in other areas. Like, so they might be more kind of technology hyper focused, but then maybe have like less rounded, like with like social skills or being able to read people's faces, or maybe critical thinking or something. I could see some of that happening. Which makes me wish even more we had a better GUI so they're not learning crap if they're going to go down this road anyway. So that's sort of that's a literal shift of your brain depending on how you're raised. But yeah, I could see something like that happening. Okay, I'm down to 0 point questions now. I'll take. Sorry I went on so long this time, but at least I didn't like start fainting or something because of lack of air. Okay, go ahead and put at Ross Broadcast, and I'll just scan through if there's any more questions because I'm almost to the. If you have questions you want to ask you for the live chat, I'll just try and get through many as quickly as I can. Okay, someone's saying, why are you torturing yourself with bad games through Game Dungeon? Game Dungeon where you play games you enjoyed were mostly a lot more fun to watch. Well, it depends. It depends. I do on the 10 is one game I like a lot. I'll say that. So on the list of 8 to 10. Any plans on using DALL-E for the movie? People already figured out how to generate 3D textures and even 3D meshes. 3D meshes could be good, though the hard part is organics. So it's not just having a model. It's like, let's say I need a creature, like a sheep or a pig or something, and when it moves, I need it to deform in roughly the right way. I hope to be getting help on that. So if somebody wants to generate better textures using that, sure, why not? Yeah, I'm not picky how this. I'm all about the end result. So it's. Did you use a tape deck with your Commodore 64? No, it was a floppy drive. If so, how many and which kind? It was 5 1/4. Was the computer the early brown bread bin style or the later beige flat type? I don't remember exactly. It might have been the later beige type. Do you use any sort of accessory like a RAM expander or fast loader cartridge? No, but I ended up getting an Atari joystick from a yard sale and found that they worked also on Commodore 64, and the Atari ones, the Atari aftermarket ones were way nicer. So, have you played the Soviet Gersdorf games? No, I haven't. I'm not familiar with those at all, or that term. I know there was some city builder that was based off of like Soviet Russia that was coming out that looked like they were going the distance on that. But it didn't quite look like my thing. So, you mentioned how you didn't like Stardew Valley because you're basically on a timer. I don't know if I really played Stardew Valley much. Maybe I was talking about another game. How would you design time passing in a game like that? Well, okay. I'm trying to think of like what game I was talking about. I mean, It's you can make those sort of turn-based if you wanted to, or like not it wouldn't have to be turn-based, but like the day doesn't. Well, you see this happens all the time in like old adventure games, where the day doesn't progress until you've done a certain event, so you could kind of do like the crop growing or whatever it is you wanted to do, because if or you could just have a variable. Yeah, you could. I'm thinking of two solutions. You could either have you could grow your crops, water your crops, take as long as you want, and then the day doesn't pass until you go back into the house or something like that. So it's like you're not being rushed, but like once you feel like you've, or the other option would be you could just have an adjustable timescale feature. So if you want the day to kind of pass by gradually at your own at its pace, and you want to adjust to that, the day could pass by in a minute's an hour, or it could be real time, or it could be just whatever fits you, because those aren't exactly like competitive games. They're kind of for the experience that you like of it. So, though I'm not sure I'd be the right audience for that sort of thing anyway. I don't like games that feel like work. I can appreciate the atmosphere of games like that, but if it's like I have to do a bunch of chores, it's like, I'd rather do the real thing and get the real payoff, But I can appreciate like the subtle atmosphere of it, and then like if having some goal, like one of those I might play is Granger Heights, I think. It's the one where during the day it's basically what's the one Stardew Valley is based off of? I'm drawing a blank. It's something Moon Crossing. It's not Animal Crossing. It's the Moon. Whatever. I'm sure the chat will know it. It's like that during the day. Then at night, it's like Twin Peaks or X-Files, full of conspiracies, like secretive Harvest Moon. Yeah, Harvest Moon. That's what I was thinking of. So like during the day, everything's nice, sunny, and happy, and at night, like all these conspiracies, maybe murder mysteries, everybody is full of secrets. There might have been a cult thing going on. So it's like, yeah, that might be just my kind of contrast. I'll see. So I might play that one. What do you think about how producers and developers spend tons of money to make a proof of concept bid, only to pick a different team, and developer goes under? Well, I mean, it's a dysfunctional industry. I mean, should publishers have this much power? Or do they even need it in a world with Steam? Well, Steam's a publisher too. If Steam ever changed its mind, it could go back to being ugly. Well, even then, Steam takes a healthy cut too. And online distribution. Well, you say, are they needed? For some games, you need a lot of money to make. I mean, I mentioned Watch Dogs and the Dead Game News, and I love the atmosphere of that game. That's 100% a game I plan to go through again in VR and just take the tour. Game like that takes a lot of money to make, and you need backers for that. So, I mean, maybe you could come up with, and what backers tend to like are sure things. So, I mean, I'm sure there's room for improvement on that, but I don't know exactly how you go about doing that. So, I think there's some dynamic deformation animation models as well from NVIDIA. Yeah. If you think you know how I should be making my animations and models for the movie specifically, by all means, email me, brusstudiescott@gmail.com. I mean, I'm doing as much research as I can, but it's entirely possible I'm missing things. Plus, I mean, this is a hot field. New things are happening all the time, especially with AI. You had the game Noita on your radar. It's basically a masterclass in emergent gameplay, and regardless of whether you think you enjoy it. Okay, I'll look into that. Did you ever try scripting stuff in PowerShell? Yeah, I've done that. In fact, you practically have to do that if you want to install. Yeah, I really learned some PowerShell during those 2 weeks I migrated to Windows 10. uh, if you want Windows to install a minimum of crap and keep it from not updating unless you want it to, that's practically mandatory. So I learned. I mean, I wasn't a complete stranger before that because I mean, I used the command prompt to making batch files. It's just that you had to learn more commands with PowerShell. And it's a little bit way of doing things, but I mean, it's useful. That's I use a PowerShell script for that VR problem I have, where like if on my new monitor, if VR is on and I turn off the monitor, it never comes back. So I have to manually disable the device driver, and I set up a hotkey for that with PowerShell. So, I mean, it's like for me, it was like command prompt. It's not much different. I mean, obviously, if you're in real deep into it, there's probably a lot of differences but I'm just doing basic things. Do you hear that Eidos was sold by Square Enix? They want to make another Deus Ex game. Think it might give them more freedom, something closer to the spirit of Deus Ex without Square Enix strong-arming them? I have no idea. I think they should just do a... Well, yeah, I think I said before, I think they should just do a spiritual successor, just start over. I mean, it's... Yeah, like the new Prey is anything like the old Prey. Or what was another movie? What was another? I think they did a remake of Thief, but I'm not familiar enough with the franchise to know if that's. I think they changed a lot though, so I think they should do that and just start fresh because there's too many dead ends from the original story of Deus Ex to kind of worm around that. You could have a better story if you just do something that's in the spirit of Deus Ex, in my opinion. Yeah, like Final Fantasy. Does Final Fantasy worry that much about what the last game did, or does it just start over each time? I mean, keeping with the general spirit of what they're aiming for. I think they should take the Final Fantasy approach with Deus Ex, and just keep the same spirit, keep the gameplay people are gonna like, and just come up with a totally fresh story that just is gonna kind of challenge ideas. You know, that's. Thoughts on Discovery canceling dozens of shows on HBO after the acquisition? I didn't even know Discovery grabbed them. Well, let's hope good writers come out of. Let's hope shows with good writing come out of it somehow. Favorite metal original soundtrack? Like so, it's like from a game or a movie. I mean, both Quake 2 and Quake 3 are pretty good soundtracks for metal. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, they're really good. Okay, scrolling up a bit. What's your favorite carbonated drink? Well, I don't really drink soda. I just pretty much drink water now. But when I did drink soda, because I'm enough of a sugar addict as it is to not tempt myself even more. Though I've been off a long time. But when I did drink it, my favorite tended to be like Dr. Pepper or generic Dr. Pepper. I never tasted much of a difference. If we're just going by taste, I guess. Yeah, I think Walmart, it's like Dr. Perky or something. Your opinion on banning the Spider-Man mod that was removing rainbow flags. This is just... This sounds like the stuff that I think a lot of people involved are being stupid, and they're just... They're better things. They're higher quality problems for you to get upset over. Either way. Like... Okay, I think I'll end it on that. Yeah, you can do better for things to get upset over on both sides. On both sides. So, okay, I think that's enough for me. I'm gonna go get some food now. My video chat wasn't too bad. I just still look like I have a birthmark now. Yeah, if it ever gets really bad, I'll just have a hood over me. Okay, I'll see you. And yeah, the next game dungeon this month. I can totally commit to that. It's a whole lot's done. It's just there were surprises for me too when making this one. Multiple surprises. This is definitely, this one may not be your favorite, but I consider this one a more noteworthy one. There's things I have not seen before in this one that I wasn't expecting. So, okay, I'll see you.